At 32, Lucas Reed thought he had finally built a stable life for his young daughter, until the woman he trusted walked out overnight, leaving nothing but silence and unanswered questions. Forced to hold himself together for his child, Lucas buried the pain and returned to his demanding role at a fast-growing tech company. There, his sharp and seemingly untouchable CEO, Adrian Vale, noticed the cracks he tried so hard to hide. But when the lines between boss and employee began to blur, when late-night work sessions turned into conversations about life and sacrifice, Lucas faced a brutal truth. He was burning out again, and this time, his daughter was watching. Could one brave decision save everything he loved? Or would he lose both his career and his chance at real happiness? Stay with my story until the end, hit like, and comment what city you're watching from so I can see how far this story has traveled. The apartment door clicked shut at 2:47 a.m. Lucas heard it from the bedroom, that soft metallic sound that should have been nothing, just the wind maybe, or the building settling, but he knew better. He was already awake, staring at the ceiling, listening to the rhythm of his daughter's breathing through the baby monitor on the nightstand. When he finally got up and walked into the living room, he found exactly what he expected. Empty space where her shoes used to be, the closet door half open, hangers scattered on the floor like discarded bones. She hadn't left a note. He stood there in his boxers and an old t-shirt, barefoot on the cold hardwood, and felt the strange weightlessness of a life collapsing without sound. No shouting, no slammed doors, just absence. By morning, he had already made coffee, packed Mia's lunch, and laid out her favorite purple shirt with the unicorn on it. She was 4 years old. She didn't need to know yet. "Daddy, where's Vanessa?" Mia asked at breakfast, her spoon halfway to her mouth, milk dripping back into the bowl. "She had to go away for a while, sweetheart." "Is she coming back?" Lucas looked at his daughter's wide brown eyes, so much like his own, and felt the lie stick in his throat. "I don't know." Mia nodded solemnly, as if she understood more than she should, and went back to her cereal. Lucas watched her eat and felt the weight of every decision he'd ever made pressing down on his chest. 3 days later, he was back at work. Vale Technologies occupied the top 8 floors of a glass tower in the financial district, the kind of building that looked like it had been designed by someone who believed in the future a little too hard. Lucas worked on the 6th floor in a bullpen of developers and project managers who lived on cold brew and the perpetual hope of stock options that might actually be worth something one day. He hadn't told anyone what happened. Not his manager, not his friends. If he could still call them that, the handful of people he texted once a month to confirm he was still alive. He'd just shown up Monday morning with the same face he always wore, the one that said he was fine, everything was fine, and if you asked him how his weekend was, he'd say good, and move the conversation somewhere else. But Adrienne Vale noticed. She was the kind of person people noticed first. Tall, sharp-featured, with dark hair pulled back in a way that suggested she didn't have time for anything that wasn't essential. She dressed like she was on her way to renegotiate a hostage situation. Tailored suits in charcoal and navy, shoes that made a specific sound on marble floors, the kind of sound that said, "I'm coming and you'd better be ready." She'd founded Vale Technologies 7 years ago with money from a venture capital firm that had since made back 10 times their investment, and she ran it the way a conductor runs an orchestra, tight, precise, and without tolerance for anyone who couldn't keep tempo. Lucas had been working there for 3 years. In that time, he'd spoken to Adrienne maybe a dozen times, always in meetings, always about deliverables and timelines and whether the product roadmap aligned with investor expectations. She knew his name. She probably knew his performance metrics. Beyond that, he assumed he was just another line item in a very long spreadsheet. So when she stopped by his desk on Wednesday afternoon, he looked up in genuine confusion. "Lucas?" Her voice was calm, controlled, the kind of voice that didn't waste syllables. "Do you have a minute?" Yeah, sure." She glanced at the open-plan chaos around them. Developers with headphones on, someone arguing loudly about API documentation, the distant hum of the espresso machine that never stopped running. "Not here. My office." He followed her to the elevator, then up 2 floors to the executive suite, where the carpet was thicker and the walls were actual walls instead of glass partitions. Her office had floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, a desk that looked like it cost more than his car, and a single piece of art on the wall, something abstract and vaguely unsettling, all sharp lines and dark colors. She closed the door behind him. Sit. He sat. Adrienne didn't sit. She stood by the window, arms crossed, looking out at the skyline like she was deciding whether to buy it. For a long moment, she didn't say anything. You've been distracted, she said finally. Lucas opened his mouth to deny it, then realized there was no point. I'm handling it. Are you? I'm getting my work done. That's not what I asked. He looked at her then, really looked, and saw something in her expression he didn't expect. Not anger, not impatience, but something closer to concern. It threw him off balance. I don't know what you want me to say, he said quietly. She turned to face him fully, leaning back against the windowsill. I want you to tell me the truth. Are you okay? The question landed like a punch. No one had asked him that, not once. Not his mother, who lived 3 states away and called every other Sunday to talk about her garden. Not his co-workers, who assumed his silence was just his personality. Not even Vanessa, in the weeks before she left, when the apartment had started to feel like a place where 2 people lived separate lives under the same roof. No, he said, and the word came out rougher than he intended. No, I'm not okay. Adrienne nodded slowly, as if she'd been expecting that answer. What happened? He didn't owe her an explanation. She was his boss, not his therapist. But something about the way she asked, direct, without pity, like she genuinely wanted to know, made the walls crack. My girlfriend left, he said. 3 days ago, middle of the night. Didn't say why, didn't leave a note, just gone. Do you have kids? A daughter. Mia. She's 4. And she's with you? Yeah, she's with me. Adrienne was quiet for a moment, her gaze steady. That's a lot to carry. Lucas laughed, a short, bitter sound. Yeah, it is. Are you managing? Logistically, I mean, childcare, everything else? Barely. I've got a neighbor who helps out sometimes, but she's not reliable. I'm figuring it out as I go. And work? I'll keep up. I'm not going to let it slide. That's not what I'm worried about. She pushed off the windowsill and walked over to her desk, resting her hands on the edge. I'm worried you're going to burn out trying to do everything at once. I don't have a choice. You do. She paused, choosing her words carefully. I'm going to adjust your workload, take you off the Hartfield project and move you to something with more flexible deadlines. You'll keep the same salary, same title. I just don't want you drowning. Lucas stared at her. You don't have to do that. I know I don't. I'm doing it anyway. Why? She met his eyes, and for a moment he thought he saw something flicker there, something unguarded, almost vulnerable, but it was gone before he could name it. Because I know what it's like to lose everything and still have to show up the next day, she said quietly. And I know how easy it is to destroy yourself trying to prove you're strong enough to handle it. The next 2 weeks were strange. Lucas found himself on a new team, working on a product update that wasn't due for another quarter. The pace was slower, the pressure lighter. He had time to pick Mia up from daycare without sprinting out the door. He had time to make her dinner, read her stories, tuck her in without feeling like he was running on fumes. But the weight didn't lift. If anything, it got heavier. At night, after Mia was asleep, he'd sit on the couch with his laptop and try to work. But the code blurred together and his mind wandered. He'd find himself staring at his phone, scrolling through old messages from Vanessa, looking for clues he'd missed. There were none. Just the usual logistics. Can you pick up milk on your way home? Mia has a dentist appointment Tuesday. I'll be late tonight. And then nothing. He didn't understand. That was the part that kept him awake. If she'd been unhappy, why hadn't she said something? If she'd been planning to leave, why hadn't she given him a chance to fix it? Or maybe she had, and he just hadn't been paying attention. One Thursday night, he got an email from Adrienne at 11:47 p.m. Subject: Still awake? He stared at the screen for a moment, then typed back, Unfortunately. You? Her reply came 30 seconds later. Always. Come up to my office. He hesitated. Mia was asleep. The neighbor, Mrs. Chandler, a retired teacher who lived 2 doors down, was technically on call, but he hated waking her up. Still, something about the message felt urgent. He texted Mrs. Chandler, threw on a jacket, and drove back to the office. The building was almost empty at this hour, just a few scattered lights on the upper floors where the truly obsessive worked. He took the elevator up, and when the doors opened, Adrienne was standing in the hallway waiting for him. "You didn't have to come," she said. "You made it sound important." "I just wanted to talk." She led him back to her office, but this time it felt different, less formal, more human. She'd taken off her blazer. Her sleeves were rolled up. There was a half-empty glass of whiskey on her desk. "Want one?" she asked, nodding toward the bottle. "Sure." She poured him 2 fingers of something expensive, handed it over, and sat down on the couch by the window instead of behind her desk. Lucas sat across from her, the glass warm in his hands. "How are you holding up?" she asked. "Same as before. Maybe worse." "Talk to me." So he did. He told her about Vanessa, about how they'd met at a coffee shop 4 years ago, how she'd moved in after 6 months, how everything had seemed fine until it wasn't. He told her about Mia, about how much he loved being a father and how terrified he was that he was screwing it up. He told her about the nights when he couldn't sleep, the mornings when he had to force himself out of bed, the constant low-grade panic that someday he'd wake up and realize he'd lost everything that mattered. Adrienne listened without interrupting, her gaze steady, her expression unreadable. "You're not screwing it up," she said when he finally stopped talking. "You're doing the best you can with an impossible situation. That's not the same thing." "Feels like it." "It's not." She took a sip of her drink, then set it down. "You want to know what I think?" "Sure." "I think you're so busy trying to be strong for everyone else that you've forgotten how to take care of yourself. And I think if you keep going like this, you're going to break." Lucas looked at her, surprised by the bluntness. "What am I supposed to do? I can't just stop. I have a kid." "I'm not saying stop. I'm saying ask for help." "From who?" "From me." The words hung in the air between them. "Adrienne, I mean it." She leaned forward, her elbows on her knees. "You don't have to do this alone. If you need time off, take it. If you need someone to cover for you, I'll handle it. If you need someone to just listen while you fall apart, I'm here." Lucas didn't know what to say. He'd worked for her for 3 years, and in all that time he'd thought of her as untouchable, brilliant, ruthless, entirely focused on the business. But sitting here now, in the quiet of her office at midnight, he saw someone different, someone who understood what it meant to carry weight no one else could see. "Why are you doing this?" he asked quietly. She smiled, a small, sad smile. "Because someone did it for me once, and I didn't appreciate it until it was too late." After that night, things shifted. Adrienne started checking in more often, not in a hovering way, but in a way that felt intentional. She'd send him messages late at night, asking how Mia was doing, whether he'd eaten, whether he needed anything. She adjusted his schedule so he could leave early on Fridays. She introduced him to a woman in HR who helped him set up emergency childcare through the company's benefits program. Slowly, the pieces of his life started to fit back together. But something else was happening too. Something neither of them talked about. It started with the conversations. What had been brief check-ins became longer exchanges, about work, at first, then about life. Adrienne told him about growing up in a small town upstate, about how she'd clawed her way into an Ivy League school on scholarships and spite, about the years she'd spent in consulting before finally betting everything on Vail Technologies. She talked about the sacrifices she'd made, relationships that fell apart because she worked too much, friendships that faded because she didn't have time to maintain them, the gnawing loneliness of being the person everyone relied on, but no one really knew. Lucas found himself telling her things he hadn't told anyone, about his own childhood, about his father leaving when he was 8, about the way he'd promised himself he'd never do that to his own kid, about how scared he was that he was repeating the same patterns anyway, working too hard, not being present enough, missing the moments that mattered. "You're not your father," Adrienne said one night. They were in her office again, sitting on opposite ends of the couch, the city lights glittering below them. "You're here. You're trying. That's the difference." "Is it enough?" "I don't know," she said honestly, "but it's more than a lot of people do." He looked at her, at the way the dim light softened her sharp features, and felt something shift in his chest. It wasn't sudden. It had been building for weeks, maybe longer, but it was undeniable now. He was falling for her, and from the way she looked back at him, he thought maybe she felt it too. The weeks that followed felt like walking a tightrope. At work, they maintained the careful distance of boss and employee. In meetings, Adrienne was all business. Sharp questions, demanding standards, the kind of focus that made everyone in the room sit a little straighter. Lucas presented his work, took notes, and left without lingering. To anyone watching, they were exactly what they appeared to be: CEO and senior developer, nothing more. But late at night, when the office was empty and the rest of the city was asleep, they became something else. They talked about everything. Adrienne told him about the investor who'd tried to push her out in year 2, about the sleepless nights spent wondering if she'd made a terrible mistake, about the first time she'd seen the company's valuation hit 8 figures and felt nothing but exhaustion. Lucas told her about Mia's first steps, about the way Vanessa had cried happy tears, and how he'd thought in that moment that everything was perfect, about how wrong he'd been. "Do you miss her?" Adrienne asked one night. It was past midnight and they were sitting on the floor of her office with their backs against the couch, a half-eaten pizza between them. Lucas thought about it. "I miss the idea of her, the version I thought we were going to be. But the real her? No, I don't think I ever really knew her. That's worse, isn't it? When you realize you were in love with someone who didn't exist." "Yeah." He looked at her. "Have you ever been in love?" Adrienne was quiet for a long moment. "Once. A long time ago." "What happened?" "I chose the company over him. He wanted me to slow down, to build a life that had room for both of us. I told him I couldn't." She picked at the label on her water bottle. "He left, married someone else 2 years later. Last I heard, they have 3 kids and a house in Connecticut." "Do you regret it?" "Every day." She met his eyes. "But I'd probably make the same choice again. That's the part that scares me." Lucas reached over and took her hand. Her fingers were cold, and he wrapped both of his around them. "You don't have to be scared." "Don't I?" "Look at us, Lucas. This is the same pattern all over again. I'm working 80-hour weeks. You're barely keeping your head above water. We're sitting on the floor of my office at 1 in the morning eating cold pizza instead of living actual lives. Maybe that's okay for right now." "Is it?" She pulled her hand away, not unkindly, but with a finality that made his chest tighten. "You have a daughter. She deserves a father who's present, not someone who's running himself into the ground trying to prove he can handle everything." "I am present? Are you? Really?" Adrienne stood up, pacing to the window. "When's the last time you took Mia to the park? Or read her a bedtime story without falling asleep halfway through? When's the last time you did something that wasn't work or survival?" Lucas felt the words like a slap. Because she was right. He couldn't remember the last time he'd done any of those things. The last few weeks had been better than the chaos right after Vanessa left, but better was a low bar. He was still barely keeping up, still running on empty, still telling himself he'd catch his breath tomorrow. "I'm doing the best I can," he said quietly. "I know you are. That's what makes this so hard." She turned to face him, and he saw the conflict written all over her face. "I care about you, Lucas. More than I should, probably. But I don't know how to do this without destroying both of us in the process. So, what are you saying?" "I'm saying maybe we need to be honest about what this is, and what it can't be." Lucas stood up, crossing the room to stand in front of her. "What do you want it to be?" "I want—" She stopped, her composure cracking. "I want to be selfish. I want to tell you to stay here with me, to keep having these conversations, to see where this goes. But I also want you to be happy. And I don't think you can be, not like this. You don't get to decide that for me. Someone has to." Her voice broke just slightly. "Because you're not going to do it yourself. You're going to keep pushing until there's nothing left." They stood there, inches apart, the tension between them thick enough to cut. Lucas could feel his heart pounding, could see the way her breath hitched, and he absolutely knew, that if he kissed her right now, she'd kiss him back. That they'd cross a line they couldn't uncross, and everything would change. But he also knew she was right. He took a step back. "I should go," he said. "It's late." Adrienne nodded, not meeting his eyes. "Yeah. You should." He gathered his things, his movements mechanical, and headed for the door, but before he left, he turned back. "For what it's worth," he said, "I think you're wrong. I think we could figure this out if we tried. Maybe, she said softly. But what if we can't? He didn't have an answer for that, so he left. The next week was brutal. Lucas threw himself into work with a vengeance, volunteering for extra projects, staying late, doing anything to avoid thinking about that conversation. Adrienne did the same, burying herself in meetings and strategy sessions and the endless demands of running a company that never stopped growing. They didn't talk. Not really. Just the necessary exchanges and meetings, brief emails about deadlines and deliverables. The easy warmth that had been building between them was gone, replaced by a careful professionalism that felt like armor. But at home, things were falling apart. Mia was acting out, throwing tantrums over nothing, refusing to eat, waking up in the middle of the night crying. Lucas tried everything he could think of. He read parenting books. He talked to the daycare teachers. He cut back on work as much as he dared, coming home earlier, spending more time with her. Nothing worked. One night, after a particularly epic meltdown over bedtime, Lucas sat on the edge of Mia's bed and felt the exhaustion settle into his bones. "Baby, what's wrong?" he asked. "You can tell me." Mia looked up at him with tear-streaked cheeks. "Are you going to leave too?" The question hit him like a truck. "What? No, never. Why would you think that?" "Because Vanessa left. And you're always sad now. And you're not here even when you're here." Lucas felt something break inside him. Because she was 4 years old and she'd just put into words exactly what Adrienne had been trying to tell him. He wasn't present. He was going through the motions, checking boxes, surviving, but he wasn't really there. "I'm so sorry, sweetheart," he said, pulling her into his arms. "You're right. I haven't been here the way I should be. But I promise you, I swear to you, I am never leaving. You are the most important thing in my life. Nothing matters more than you." "Not even work?" "Not even work." She buried her face in his shoulder, and he held her until she fell asleep. Then he sat there in the dark, listening to her breathe, and made a decision. The next morning, he called in sick. He didn't go to work. Instead, he took Mia to the aquarium. They spent hours watching the jellyfish drift through their tanks, the sea otters tumble and play, the enormous Pacific octopus pulse against the glass. Mia laughed, really laughed, for the first time in weeks. She held his hand and asked a million questions and ate overpriced fish-shaped crackers without complaining. And Lucas felt something shift, not fixed, not healed, but lighter. They got ice cream on the way home. Mia got chocolate with sprinkles and proceeded to get it all over her face, her hands, and somehow her shoes. Lucas didn't care. He took pictures. He made silly faces. He was present. That night, after Mia was in bed, he opened his laptop and drafted an email to Adrienne. Then he deleted it, because he realized he couldn't do this over email. If he was going to make this choice, the one he'd been avoiding for weeks, he needed to do it in person. The next day, he went into the office early and asked Adrienne's assistant if she had any time that morning. "She's got back-to-back meetings until 3, the assistant said apologetically. "It's important." Something in his tone must have registered because she picked up the phone. After a brief conversation, she hung up and nodded. "She can give you 10 minutes at 9. At 9 sharp, Lucas walked into Adrienne's office. She looked up from her computer, her expression carefully neutral. "Lucas, what can I do for you?" He closed the door behind him and sat down across from her desk. For a moment, he didn't say anything. He just looked at her, at the woman who'd seen him at his worst and hadn't looked away, who'd offered him help when he was too proud to ask for it, who'd made him feel like maybe he wasn't completely lost. "I need to tell you something," he said finally. "Okay." "I've been thinking about what you said, about not being present for Mia, about running myself into the ground." He took a breath. "You were right." Adrienne's expression softened slightly. "Lucas, let me finish. You were right, and I didn't want to hear it, but I needed to. Because my daughter told me the same thing. She asked me if I was going to leave her too." "Oh, Lucas. So I'm making a change." He met her eyes. "I'm stepping back. Not quitting, but I need to find a better balance. I need to be there for her in a way that actually matters. And I can't do that while working 60-hour weeks and staying up until 2 in the morning." Adrienne nodded slowly. What do you need from me? Honestly, I don't know yet. Maybe a different role. Maybe part-time. Maybe just the understanding that I can't be the person I was before all this happened. You have it. Whatever you need, we'll figure it out. Thank you. He paused. There's something else. What is it? Us. This thing between us. He gestured vaguely between them. I don't know what it is or what it could be, but I know I can't think about it right now. I need to focus on Mia, on being the father she deserves, and that means putting everything else on hold. Adrienne was quiet for a long moment. When she finally spoke, her voice was steady, but he could hear the sadness underneath. I understand. Do you? Yes. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Because I'd be a hypocrite if I didn't. I'm the one who told you to choose her first. It doesn't mean I don't care about you. I know. But sometimes caring about someone means giving them space to do what they need to do. She stood up, walked around the desk, and held out her hand. Thank you for being honest with me. He took her hand, and the contact sent electricity through him. For a second, he thought about changing his mind, about pulling her close and saying, forget it, they'd figure it out together. But he didn't, because she was right. Mia had to come first. He let go of her hand and stood up. I should get to work. Lucas? He turned back. For what it's worth, she said quietly, I think you're making the right choice, and I'm proud of you. Those words stayed with him for the rest of the day. The transition wasn't easy. Lucas moved to a part-time consulting role, working from home 3 days a week. The pay cut hurt, but he made it work. He downsized his life, moved to a smaller apartment, sold his car and started taking the bus, cut out everything that wasn't essential. What he gained was time to pick Mia up from school, time to help with homework, time to cook dinner and give her a bath and read 3 stories instead of 1 before bed. Slowly, she started coming back to herself. The tantrums stopped. She started sleeping through the night again. She'd run to him when he picked her up from daycare, her whole face lighting up, and it made every sacrifice worth it. But there were hard days, too. Days when the bills piled up, and he wondered if he'd made a terrible mistake. Days when he saw his former teammates posting on social media about product launches and promotions, and felt the sting of what he'd walked away from. Days when he missed Adrienne so much it physically hurt. He didn't reach out to her. She didn't reach out to him. They'd both made their choices. Then, one Saturday afternoon, 6 weeks after their conversation, his phone buzzed. It was a text from Adrienne. Can we talk? His heart jumped. Sure. When? Now? I'm actually outside your building. Lucas looked out the window and saw her standing on the sidewalk, hands in her coat pockets, looking uncertain in a way he'd never seen before. He told Mia he'd be right back and went downstairs. Hi, he said. Hi. She looked nervous. I hope this is okay. I probably should have called first. It's fine. What's going on? Can we walk? They started down the sidewalk, the afternoon sun warm on their faces. For a while, neither of them said anything. I've been thinking about you, Adrienne said finally. About what you're doing. About the choice you made. Yeah? It was brave. Braver than anything I've ever done. She glanced at him. And it made me realize something. What's that? I've spent my whole life building things, companies, teams, products. Things that look impressive on paper but don't actually mean anything when I'm alone at 3 a.m. staring at the ceiling. She stopped walking, turning to face him. I don't want to do that anymore. Lucas felt his pulse quicken. What do you want? I want to build a life that actually matters, with people who matter. And I think... She hesitated, then pushed forward. I think you matter, Lucas. You and Mia both. And I don't want to lose that. Adrienne, I'm not asking you to come back to work full-time. I'm not asking you to choose between me and your daughter. I'm just asking if there's room in your life for someone who wants to be part of it. Not as your boss. Just as me. Lucas looked at her, at the vulnerability in her eyes, and felt the walls he'd built start to crumble. I don't know if I'm ready, he said honestly. I know. And that's okay. I'm not asking for an answer right now. I'm just asking you to think about it. She reached into her pocket and pulled out an envelope. I talked to the board. We're restructuring the company, creating a new division focused on employee wellness and sustainable growth. I want you to lead it. What? It's a full-time role with benefits, but it's designed around balance. Flexible hours, work from home options, the whole thing. You'd be building the kind of workplace we should have had from the beginning. She held out the envelope. Think about it. No pressure, no deadline. Just consider it. Lucas took the envelope, his mind racing. And if you decide you want nothing to do with the job or with me, I'll respect that, Adrian continued. But I had to try because I've spent too much of my life playing it safe and regretting it later. She started to walk away, and Lucas felt panic rise in his chest. Wait, he called. She turned back. I'm not ready to say yes to everything, but I'm not saying no either. Can we start slow? Maybe coffee sometime? See where it goes? Adrienne smiled, a real smile that reached her eyes. I'd like that. And the job, I need to read through this, talk to Mia's school, make sure the schedule actually works. Take all the time you need. They stood there on the sidewalk, the city moving around them, and for the first time in months, Lucas felt like maybe the future wasn't just about survival. Maybe it could be about something more. I should get back, he said. Mia's upstairs. Of course. Tell her I said hi. I will. He paused. Adrienne? Yeah? Thank you for not giving up on me. Never, she said softly. I'm not that smart. He laughed. And she did too. And then she was walking away and he was heading back to his apartment with the envelope in his hand and hope in his chest. Upstairs, Mia was waiting for him, her coloring book spread across the coffee table. Who was that? She asked. A friend, Lucas said. Someone who cares about us. Are they coming over? Maybe someday. Would that be okay? Mia considered this seriously. Will they play with me? I think they'd like that. Okay then. She went back to her coloring, and Lucas sat down beside her, the envelope still in his hand. He didn't open it right away. Instead, he picked up a crayon and started coloring with his daughter, feeling the weight of possibilities settle around him like a blanket. For the first time since Vanessa left, he wasn't just surviving. He was building something new, something real. And he had no idea where it would lead, but he was ready to find out. That night, after Mia was asleep, Lucas sat at his kitchen table with the envelope unopened in front of him. The apartment was quiet except for the hum of the refrigerator and the distant sound of traffic from the street below. He'd been staring at it for 20 minutes, turning it over in his hands, feeling the weight of what it represented. Finally, he tore it open. Inside was a formal offer letter on Veil Technologies' letterhead, but attached to it was a handwritten note on plain paper. He recognized Adrienne's handwriting immediately, sharp, precise, slanting slightly to the right. Lucas, I meant what I said. No pressure. But I want you to know this isn't charity and it isn't guilt. This role is something the company needs, and you're the only person I trust to build it right. You've lived what most of our employees are going through. You know what it costs to give everything to a job that doesn't give back. If you take this, you won't be working for me. You'll be working with me. There's a difference. Think about it. He read it twice, then set it down and picked up the offer letter. Director of Employee Experience and Culture. Salary comparable to what he'd been making before, plus equity. Flexible schedule with core hours between 10 and 3. Work from home options 3 days a week. Full benefits including childcare support. The position reported directly to the executive team, which meant directly to Adrienne, but had autonomy over budget and strategy. It was everything he needed, everything he'd been afraid to even want. And that terrified him. Because accepting meant going back. Not to the chaos he'd left behind, but to proximity with Adrienne, to late meetings and strategy sessions, and all the small moments where professionalism blurred into something else. He'd walked away specifically to avoid that, to protect himself and Mia from the possibility of losing focus again. But sitting here now, in his cramped kitchen with bills spread across the counter, and his daughter's crayon drawings stuck to the refrigerator with magnets, he had to admit the truth. He missed it. Not the exhaustion or the pressure, but the work itself. The feeling of building something that mattered. The intellectual challenge of solving problems that didn't have obvious answers. And if he was being completely honest, which he was trying to be, at least with himself, he missed Adrienne. He pulled out his laptop and started researching. He looked up childcare options near the office, mapped out commute times, calculated what the salary increase would mean for his budget. He read through the company's current benefits package and made notes on what was missing. By 2 in the morning, he had a spreadsheet and a list of questions, and he still hadn't made a decision. The next day was Sunday. He took Mia to the park, pushed her on the swings, helped her across the monkey bars, and tried not to think about the offer. But his mind kept drifting back to it, running scenarios, weighing options, second-guessing himself in circles. "Daddy, you're not paying attention," Mia said, tugging on his sleeve. "Sorry, baby. What did you say?" "I said, watch me go down the slide." "I'm watching." She climbed up the ladder and slid down, her hair flying behind her, laughing the whole way. When she reached the bottom, she ran back to him and grabbed his hand. "Did you see?" "I saw. You're getting so brave. Can we get ice cream? It's 11 in the morning. Please?" He looked at her hopeful face and felt his resolve crumble. "Okay. But just this once." They walked to the ice cream shop 2 blocks over, and Mia got her usual, chocolate with rainbow sprinkles. Lucas got coffee flavor, which Mia declared was grown-up and boring. They sat on a bench outside, and Lucas watched her swing her legs and attack her cone with the single-minded focus only a 4-year-old could manage. "Mia," he said carefully, "what would you think if Daddy went back to work at the office more?" She looked up at him, ice cream on her nose. "Would you still pick me up from school?" "Most days, yeah." "And read me stories?" "Every night." "Then it's okay." She went back to her ice cream, apparently satisfied. Lucas felt something loosen in his chest. "You know that friend who came by yesterday? Adrienne? The tall lady?" "Yeah, she's the one who wants me to come back." "Is she nice?" "Very nice." "Does she like ice cream?" "I don't know. I've never asked." Mia considered this seriously. "You should find out. Everyone should like ice cream." Lucas laughed. "You're absolutely right." That evening, after Mia was in bed, he texted Adrienne, "Can we have that coffee? Tomorrow, if you're free." Her response came almost immediately. "Absolutely. Morning or afternoon?" "Morning." 9 a.m.? "That place on 5th? I'll be there." Lucas set his phone down and exhaled slowly. He still didn't know what he was going to say, but at least he was moving forward instead of spinning in place. The coffee shop on 5th was one of those aggressively trendy places with exposed brick and light fixtures made from reclaimed industrial parts. Lucas got there 10 minutes early and ordered a black coffee, then sat at a table by the window and tried to calm his nerves. Adrienne arrived exactly at 9, wearing dark jeans and a cream sweater instead of her usual suit. It was the most casual he'd ever seen her, and it threw him off balance. "Hi," she said, sliding into the chair across from him. "Hi. You want anything?" "I'll get something in a minute. Let's talk first." She folded her hands on the table. "Have you thought about it?" "I've thought about nothing else." "And?" Lucas took a breath. "I have questions." "Okay." "This role, you said it reports to the executive team. What does that actually mean? Am I sitting in on board meetings, strategic planning sessions?" "Some, yes. Mostly you'd be working with me and the COO on policy development and implementation, but you'd have autonomy over your own team and budget." "How big a team?" "Start with 2 or 3 people. Grow it as needed." "And the flexible schedule, is that real? Or is it one of those things that looks good on paper but disappears the first time there's a crisis?" Adrienne met his eyes. "It's real. I'm writing it into the employment contract. If the company tries to claw it back, you can walk with 6 months severance." Lucas nodded slowly. "What about us?" "What about us?" "You said you wanted to be part of my life, not as my boss, just as you. But if I take this job, you are my boss. How does that work?" Adrienne was quiet for a moment. "Honestly, I don't know. I've been thinking about it too, and I don't have a clean answer." "That's not reassuring." "I know." She leaned back in her chair. "Here's what I can tell you. If you take this job, I won't use my position to pressure you into anything personal. We'll maintain professional boundaries at work. What happens outside of work, if anything happens, that's separate. Between us as people, not as CEO and employee. And if it gets complicated, then we figure it out like adults, with honesty and respect and the understanding that Mia comes first, always." Lucas studied her face, looking for any sign of doubt or uncertainty. He didn't find any. "I want to say yes," he said finally. But I'm scared. Of what? Of falling back into the same patterns. Of letting work consume me again. Of failing Mia. He paused. Of failing you. You won't fail me. That's not possible. How do you know? Because you're the person who walked away when walking away was the hardest thing you could do. That takes more strength than most people have. She reached across the table and took his hand. You're not going to lose yourself in this, Lucas. I won't let you. And more importantly, you won't let you. Her hand was warm, her grip firm, and Lucas felt the last of his resistance crumble. Okay, he said. I'll do it. Adrienne smiled, and it transformed her whole face. Yeah? Yeah. On one condition. Name it. We actually have that coffee. Not just talk about work, actually sit here and have a conversation like two people who aren't negotiating employment contracts. She laughed. Deal. I'll go order. She came back 5 minutes later with some complicated latte situation involving oat milk and cinnamon, and they spent the next hour talking about everything except Veil Technologies. Adrienne told him about the book she was reading, a thriller about corporate espionage that she said was absurdly inaccurate but entertaining anyway. Lucas told her about Mia's obsession with dinosaurs and how he'd spent 3 hours last week building a cardboard triceratops. She sounds amazing, Adrienne said. She is. She's the best thing I've ever done. I'd like to meet her properly, if that's okay. Lucas felt his heart skip. Yeah, I'd like that too. They left the coffee shop together, and on the sidewalk, Adrienne hesitated. Can I ask you something? She said. Sure. That day I showed up at your apartment when Mia asked who I was and you said a friend. Did you mean it? Lucas looked at her. Yeah, I did. Good. She smiled. I'll see you Monday? Monday. She walked away and Lucas stood there watching her go, feeling like he'd just made either the best decision of his life or a catastrophic mistake. Time would tell which. The next 2 weeks were a blur of logistics. Lucas met with HR to finalize the contract, set up his new office, smaller than the executive suites but with a window and actual walls instead of glass partitions, and started assembling his team. Adrienne had approved a budget for 3 positions, a program manager, a benefits specialist, and a junior analyst. Lucas put out job postings and started reviewing applications. He also started having lunch with Adrienne once a week, not in her office, not in conference rooms, but at actual restaurants where they sat across from each other and talked about everything and nothing. They didn't talk about their relationship, didn't define what they were doing, didn't put labels on anything. They just existed in each other's orbit and let it be enough. Mia noticed. You're happy again, she said one night while Lucas was tucking her in. Am I? Yeah. You smile more. And you don't look sad all the time. Lucas kissed her forehead. You're right. I am happy. Is it because of work? Partly. It's also because of you. And the ice cream lady? He laughed. Her name is Adrienne, and yeah, maybe a little because of her too. When can I meet her for real? Soon, baby. I promise. That promise came true sooner than he expected. The following Saturday, Adrienne texted, Are you and Mia free this afternoon? I have an idea. What kind of idea? The fun kind, trust me. Okay. What time? 2. I'll pick you up. Lucas spent the rest of the morning in a state of mild panic, cleaning the apartment and making sure Mia was wearing clothes without visible stains. At exactly 2 o'clock, there was a knock on the door. Adrienne was standing there in jeans and a leather jacket, her hair down instead of pulled back, looking more relaxed than he'd ever seen her. Ready? She asked. Ready for what? You'll see. She led them down to the street where a car was waiting, not a company car, but her personal vehicle, a sleek black sedan that looked like it cost more than Lucas's annual salary. Nice car, he said. It's the one indulgence I allow myself. She opened the back door for Mia. Hi, Mia. Remember me? Mia nodded shyly. Your daddy's friend. That's right. We're going somewhere fun today. Do you like animals? Mia's eyes went wide. Yes. Good, because we're going to the zoo. The drive took 30 minutes, and Mia spent the entire time peppering Adrienne with questions. What was her favorite animal? Did she have any pets? Had she ever seen a real lion? Adrienne answered each question with patience and genuine interest. and Lucas watched from the passenger seat, feeling something warm and unfamiliar spreading through his chest. The zoo was packed with families and school groups, but Adrienne had somehow secured VIP passes that let them skip the lines and access behind-the-scenes areas. They spent the afternoon watching sea lions get fed, learning about penguin conservation, and standing inches away from a massive silverback gorilla who seemed deeply unimpressed by their presence. Mia was in heaven. She held Adrienne's hand as they walked from exhibit to exhibit, chattering nonstop about everything she was seeing. And Adrienne listened, really listened, asking questions and pointing things out and crouching down to Mia's level whenever she wanted to explain something. By the time they stopped for ice cream, because apparently that was now a mandatory part of any outing, Mia had declared Adrienne her second favorite person after Daddy. "I'm honored," Adrienne said seriously. "Do you like ice cream?" Mia asked. "I do. Vanilla is my favorite." Mia wrinkled her nose. "That's boring." "Mia," Lucas said warningly. "It's okay," Adrienne said, laughing. "She's right. It is boring. But sometimes boring is exactly what you need." They sat on a bench overlooking the flamingo pond, and Mia fell asleep against Lucas's shoulder, exhausted from the day. Adrienne looked at them and smiled. "She's wonderful," she said quietly. "She likes you." The feeling's mutual. Lucas shifted carefully, trying not to wake Mia. "Thank you for this. For today. Thank you for letting me be part of it." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the flamingos wade through the shallow water, and Lucas felt something settle into place. This, the three of them together, Mia, safe and happy, Adrienne beside him, this felt right in a way nothing had felt right in a long time. On the drive home, with Mia still asleep in the back seat, Adrienne said, "Can I ask you something?" "Sure." "Are we doing this? Actually doing this?" Lucas knew what she meant. Not the job, not the friendship, but the thing underneath all of that. The possibility they'd been dancing around for weeks. "I think we are," he said. "Is that okay, with everything else going on?" "I don't know. Maybe. Probably." He looked at her. "I know I don't want to walk away from it. From you." "I don't either." She kept her eyes on the road. "But I need you to tell me if it gets to be too much. If you feel yourself slipping back into old patterns, because I can't be the reason you lose focus on what matters." "You won't be." "You don't know that." "No," he admitted, "but I'm willing to find out." They pulled up in front of his building, and Adrienne put the car in park. For a moment, neither of them moved. "I should get her upstairs," Lucas said finally. "Yeah." Adrienne turned to look at him. "Lucas?" "Yeah?" "I'm glad you said yes. To the job, to this, to all of it." "Me too." He carried Mia upstairs, got her into bed without fully waking her, and then stood by his window watching Adrienne's taillights disappear into traffic. His phone buzzed. "Today was perfect. Thank you for sharing it with me." He texted back. "Thank you for making it happen." Mia hasn't stopped smiling in her sleep. That makes two of us. Lucas set his phone down and got ready for bed, feeling lighter than he had in months. Maybe this would work. Maybe they could actually build something real together without it falling apart. Or maybe he was setting himself up for disaster. Either way, he was all in now. No going back. The following Monday, Lucas officially started in his new role. He spent the first week interviewing candidates for his team, meeting with department heads to understand their biggest pain points, and building out a framework for what employee wellness could actually look like at Vail Technologies. It was exhausting and exhilarating in equal measure. He also started attending executive meetings. The first one was intimidating, a room full of people in expensive suits discussing quarterly projections and market positioning, but Adrienne introduced him as the newest member of the leadership team, and everyone adjusted quickly to his presence. Except for one person. Richard Garrett, the chief operating officer, made his skepticism clear from the start. "No offense, Reed," he said during Lucas's second meeting, "but this whole employee wellness initiative feels like a solution in search of a problem. Our retention numbers are solid. People want to work here." "Our retention numbers are solid because the job market is tight," Lucas said calmly. "But if you look at internal surveys, satisfaction is dropping. People are burning out." "So they're tired. That's not a crisis." "It will be if we don't address it now. Well, Lucas pulled up a slide on the screen showing exit interview data from the past year. We're losing senior people at twice the industry average, the ones who've been here long enough to know how hard we push, and the reason they cite most often is unsustainable workload. Richard leaned back in his chair. In my experience, people who can't handle the pace self-select out. That's not necessarily a bad thing. Lucas felt his jaw tighten. In my experience, people who say things like that have never had to choose between picking up their kid from daycare and keeping their job. The room went silent. Adrienne cleared her throat. I think what Lucas is saying is that we have an opportunity to be better, to build a company where people don't have to sacrifice everything to succeed. With respect, Adrienne, we didn't build this company by going easy on people. No. We built it by working ourselves half to death and assuming everyone else should do the same. She met his eyes. Maybe it's time to try something different. Richard didn't look convinced, but he dropped it. The meeting moved on. Afterward, Lucas was packing up his laptop when Adrienne caught up with him in the hallway. You okay? She asked. Yeah, just annoyed. Richard's old school. He'll come around. Will he? He will if I tell him to. She paused. You were right, by the way, about the choice between work and family. That needed to be said. I probably could have been more diplomatic. Probably, but I'm glad you weren't. They walked to the elevator together, and just before the doors opened, Adrienne said quietly, Dinner tonight? My place? Lucas looked at her. Is that a good idea? Probably not, but I'm asking anyway. What about Mia? Bring her. I'll order pizza. We'll make it casual. You sure? Positive. That evening, Lucas and Mia showed up at Adrienne's apartment with a bottle of wine for the adults and a pack of juice boxes for Mia. Adrienne's place was nothing like Lucas expected. He'd imagined something sleek and modern, all glass and steel, but instead it was warm and lived in, with bookshelves covering entire walls and plants on every available surface. You have a lot of books, Mia observed. I do. Do you like books? Daddy reads me stories every night. What's your favorite? The one about the caterpillar who eats too much and gets a tummy ache. Adrienne smiled. That's a good one. They ate pizza on the floor of Adrienne's living room because Mia insisted it was more fun that way, and watched a movie about talking animals. Mia fell asleep halfway through, curled up on the couch with a blanket Adrienne had provided. Lucas carried her to the guest room and tucked her in, then came back to find Adrienne cleaning up pizza boxes. Leave it, he said. I'll help. They worked in companionable silence, and when the kitchen was clean, they sat on the couch with glasses of wine and the comfortable quiet of two people who didn't need to fill every silence with words. This is nice, Adrienne said eventually. It is. I keep waiting for the other shoe to drop, for something to go wrong. Why does something have to go wrong? Because that's how it usually works. You get close to something good, and then life reminds you it's not yours to keep. Lucas set his glass down and turned to face her. What happened to you? To make you think like that? Adrienne was quiet for a long time. When she finally spoke, her voice was soft. I told you about the guy I chose work over. What I didn't tell you was that he was right, about everything. He said I was using the company as an excuse to avoid actually living, that I was so scared of failing at something personal that I poured everything into something I could control. And I told him he was wrong, told him to leave if he couldn't handle my ambition, so he did. She looked down at her hands. 3 months later, my company almost went under. We lost a major investor, had to lay off half the team, barely survived. And I had no one. No partner, no friends I hadn't pushed away, just me and a business that almost destroyed me. But you saved it. Yeah, I saved it, and I promised myself I'd never let anyone get close enough to hurt me like that again. She met his eyes. Until you. Lucas felt his breath catch. Adrienne, I'm not good at this, Lucas, at letting people in, at trusting that they won't leave when things get hard. But I'm trying. For you and for Mia, I'm trying. He reached for her hand. I'm not going anywhere. You don't know that. No, but I'm choosing to believe it anyway. She leaned into him, and he wrapped his arm around her shoulders, pulling her close. They sat like that for a long time, and Lucas felt the steady rhythm of her breathing, the warmth of her against his side, and thought maybe, just maybe, they had a shot at this. When he and Mia finally left, it was past 11. Adrienne walked them to the door and hugged Mia goodbye, then pulled Lucas aside. "Thank you," she said. "For what?" "For giving me a chance. For not running when you saw how broken I am." "You're not broken. You're human." She kissed him then, soft and brief, and Lucas felt it all the way to his bones. "Good night, Lucas." "Good night." On the drive home, with Mia asleep in the back seat, Lucas replayed that kiss in his mind. It wasn't their first. They'd kissed before. In his kitchen that day she'd shown up at his apartment. But it felt different, less desperate, more intentional, like a promise instead of a question. The weeks that followed settled into a rhythm. Lucas built out his team, launched pilot programs for flexible scheduling and mental health support, and started seeing real results. Employee satisfaction scores ticked up. Retention improved. People started talking about Veil Technologies as not just a place to work, but a place that actually cared about its people. Richard Garrett remained skeptical, but even he couldn't argue with the data. And outside of work, Lucas and Adrienne continued their careful dance. Dinners at her place or his, weekend outings with Mia, late-night conversations that stretched into early morning. They still hadn't defined what they were doing, hadn't put labels on it, but it felt solid, real. Until the day everything shifted. It was a Thursday afternoon, and Lucas was in his office reviewing budget proposals when his phone rang. Unknown number. "This is Lucas." "Mr. Reed, this is Emily Chen from Hillside Elementary. I'm calling about Mia." His heart stopped. "Is she okay?" "She's fine, but there's been an incident. Can you come to the school?" "I'm on my way." He was out the door in 30 seconds, not bothering to grab his coat or tell anyone where he was going. The drive to Mia's school normally took 15 minutes. He made it in 8. The principal's office was small and smelled like old coffee. Mia was sitting in a chair that was too big for her, her eyes red from crying. When she saw Lucas, she launched herself at him. "Daddy!" He caught her, holding her tight. "I'm here, baby. I'm here. What happened?" The principal, a stern-looking woman in her 50s, gestured to the other chairs. "Please sit." Lucas sat, keeping Mia in his lap. "What's going on?" There was an altercation during recess. Another student said something unkind about Mia's family situation, and Mia pushed her. Lucas felt his stomach drop. "Mia, is that true?" Mia buried her face in his shoulder, nodding. "What did the other student say?" Lucas asked. The principal hesitated. "She told Mia that her mother didn't love her. That's why she left." Lucas felt rage flare hot and bright in his chest. He took a breath, forced it down. "And what happened to the other student?" "She'll be receiving a warning as well. But Mia's action, pushing another child, that's a serious issue. She's 4 years old. Someone said something cruel about her mother abandoning her. What did you expect her to do?" "I expect her not to resort to physical violence, Mr. Reed." Lucas bit back about 6 different responses and focused on Mia. "Baby, look at me." She lifted her head. "Did you push that girl?" "Yes." "Why?" "Because she was being mean." "I know, sweetheart, but we don't push people when they're mean. We use our words." "But I was sad and mad and I just—" Her face crumpled. "I wanted her to stop." Lucas pulled her close again, his heart breaking. "I know. It's okay. We'll figure it out." He looked at the principal. "What happens now?" "Mia will sit out recess for the rest of the week. If there's another incident, we'll need to have a more serious conversation." "Understood. Can I take her home?" "Yes, we've documented everything." Lucas stood, still holding Mia. "Thank you for calling me." Outside in the parking lot, he buckled Mia into her car seat and then just stood there for a moment, gripping the car door, trying to steady himself. His phone buzzed. A text from Adrienne. "Everything okay? Your assistant said you left in a hurry." He texted back, "Issue at Mia's school, taking her home. Need anything?" "No, thanks though. Keep me posted." At home, Lucas made Mia hot chocolate and they sat on the couch together. "Am I in trouble?" she asked quietly. "A little bit. Not because you were upset, but because pushing isn't how we handle our feelings." "I know. But I also know that what that girl said was really hurtful, and I'm sorry you had to hear that." Mia was quiet for a moment. Daddy, why did Vanessa leave? There it was, the question he'd been avoiding for months. I don't know, baby. I wish I did. Was it because of me? No, no, sweetheart. It was never because of you. You are perfect exactly as you are. Then why? Lucas took a breath. Sometimes grown-ups make choices that don't make sense. Sometimes people leave even when we want them to stay. It's not fair and it's not right, but it happens. And it's never, ever the fault of the kids. Do you think she'll come back? I don't know, maybe. But what I do know is that you and me, we're going to be okay no matter what. Because we have each other. Mia nodded and snuggled closer. Lucas held her and felt the weight of every choice he'd ever made pressing down on him. He'd thought he was protecting her by staying quiet about Vanessa, by pretending everything was fine. But kids saw more than adults gave them credit for. They felt the cracks even when you tried to paper over them. That night, after Mia was asleep, Lucas called Adrienne. Hey, she answered on the first ring. How is she? Asleep, finally. What happened? He told her everything, the incident at school, the conversation after, the questions he didn't know how to answer. That's a lot for a 4-year-old to process, Adrienne said when he finished. I know, and I don't know if I'm handling it right. You're doing the best you can. That's all anyone can do. Is it enough? Yes. Her voice was firm. Lucas, you are showing up for her every single day. You're present. You're honest. You're trying. Most kids would kill to have a parent who cares that much. Lucas rubbed his eyes, exhaustion settling into his bones. I just don't want to mess this up. You won't. And even if you make mistakes, which you will because everyone does, she'll know you love her. That's what matters. They talked for another hour about nothing and everything. And by the time they hung up, Lucas felt steadier. Not fixed, but less alone. The next morning, he dropped Mia off at school and watched her walk into the building with her shoulders a little hunched, her backpack too big for her small frame. He wanted to follow her inside to protect her from every unkind word and thoughtless comment, but he couldn't. All he could do was trust that he'd given her the tools to handle it. At work, he threw himself into a new initiative, a peer support program for employees dealing with family crises. He interviewed people who'd gone through divorces, health scares, custody battles, and loss. He listened to their stories and built a framework for helping others navigate the same darkness he'd been stumbling through for months. And somewhere in the middle of all that, he realized something. He was good at this. Not just competent, but actually talented. He understood people in a way that came from lived experience, from having been broken down and built back up. And that understanding was valuable. Richard Garrett noticed too. I'll admit, he said during a budget review meeting, I had my doubts about this whole department, but the retention data from your pilot programs is impressive. Thank you, Lucas said. Don't let it go to your head. You've still got a lot to prove. I know. After the meeting, Adrienne pulled him aside. Richard doesn't give compliments lightly. That was a big deal. I'll try not to celebrate too hard, she smiled. How's Mia doing, after everything last week? Better, I think. She hasn't mentioned it again. And you? Also better? He looked at her. Thanks for talking me down that night. Anytime. That's what I'm here for. There was a moment where they just looked at each other, and Lucas felt the pull again, the magnetic force that kept drawing them together, no matter how many times they tried to maintain professional distance. Dinner tonight? He asked. Can't. Board meeting until late. Tomorrow? Tomorrow works. They went their separate ways, and Lucas headed back to his office. But as he walked through the halls of Vail Technologies, past the people working late, and the offices still lit up at 7 p.m., he felt a strange sense of belonging. This place, this company that had almost broken him, was becoming something different under his influence. Something better. And that felt like winning. But winning, Lucas discovered over the following weeks, came with its own set of complications. The investor presentation was scheduled for the last Thursday of the month. Vail Technologies was in the middle of a Series C funding round, and the stakes were astronomical. $80 million that would either launch the company into the stratosphere or expose every crack in the foundation. The entire executive team had been preparing for weeks, running through slides and financial projections until everyone could recite the pitch in their sleep. Lucas's role was straightforward. present the employee wellness initiatives, and explain how they'd improved retention and productivity. 5 minutes, maybe 10. Simple, except nothing felt simple anymore. The week before the presentation, Mia came down with a stomach bug. She was up every few hours, miserable and clingy, and Lucas spent 3 consecutive nights getting maybe 2 hours of sleep total. He worked from home during the day, laptop balanced on his knees while Mia dozed on the couch beside him, trying to finish his slides between episodes of cartoons and requests for ginger ale. Adrienne texted him constantly. "How is she? Do you need anything? I can send soup. She's okay. Just needs time. And you?" "I'm fine, liar." He smiled at his phone despite the exhaustion weighing down every bone in his body. "Maybe a little tired. Get some rest. The presentation can wait." But it couldn't, and they both knew it. The investors were flying in from 3 different states, their schedules coordinated months in advance. Postponing wasn't an option. By Monday, Mia was better. Not completely recovered, but well enough to go back to school. Lucas dropped her off with strict instructions to the teacher to call him if anything seemed off, then drove to the office and immediately got pulled into back-to-back meetings that lasted until 7. When he finally made it home, Mrs. Chandler was waiting in the hallway. "She threw up again," the neighbor said apologetically. "Around 5. I cleaned her up and got her settled, but I thought you should know." Lucas felt guilt crash over him. "I'm so sorry. I should have been here." "You're working. It happens. But maybe keep her home tomorrow?" "Yeah, definitely." Inside, Mia was curled up on the couch, looking pale and small. Lucas sat beside her and felt her forehead, still warm. "Hey, baby, Mrs. Chandler said you got sick again." "Just a little bit." Her voice was thin. "I'm sorry." "Don't be sorry. It's not your fault." He pulled her into his lap. "How about you stay home with me tomorrow? We can watch movies and eat popsicles." "But don't you have work?" "Nothing more important than you." Except that wasn't entirely true, and they both felt the weight of the lie hanging in the air. That night, after Mia was asleep, Lucas sat at the kitchen table staring at his presentation slides. They were good. Solid data, clear conclusions, compelling narrative. But every time he tried to rehearse his talking points, the words tangled in his mouth. He was too tired to think straight, too stressed to focus, and the presentation was in 3 days. His phone buzzed. "Adrienne, still awake?" "Unfortunately." "Same. Want company?" Lucas looked at the clock. It was almost midnight. "You want to come here?" "Now?" "If that's okay. I'm bringing coffee." 20 minutes later, she was standing at his door with 2 cups from the all-night diner down the block. She'd changed out of her work clothes into jeans and a sweater, her hair loose around her shoulders. "You look exhausted," she said, handing him a cup. "You're one to talk." They sat at the kitchen table, and Adrienne pulled his laptop toward her. "Show me what you've got." He walked her through the presentation, and she listened without interrupting, her expression focused and analytical. When he finished, she sat back. "It's good, really good. But you're burying the lead." "What do you mean?" "You're starting with data. Retention rates, satisfaction scores, cost savings. That's all important, but it's not what's going to make investors care." She leaned forward. "Start with a story. Tell them about the senior engineer who almost quit because he was missing his daughter's childhood. Tell them how we restructured his role and now he's one of our most productive team members. Make it human." Lucas felt something click. "That's me. You're talking about me. I'm talking about what you represent. The whole point of this department is that people aren't just resources. They're humans with lives and families and limits. Show them that." "Won't that feel too personal?" "Maybe, but personal is what cuts through." She reached across the table and took his hand. "You know this material better than anyone else in that room. You've lived it. Trust that." He looked at their joined hands, feeling the warmth of her skin against his. "What if I mess it up?" "You won't." "But what if I do? What if I freeze or forget my lines or—" "Lucas." Her voice was firm. "You're spiraling. Stop." He took a breath, then another. "Sorry." "Don't apologize. Just breathe." They sat there in the quiet of his kitchen, and slowly Lucas felt the panic recede. Adrienne stayed for another hour, helping him restructure his opening, tightening his arguments, making the whole thing sharper and more compelling. By the time she left, he felt like maybe, just maybe, he could actually pull this off. The next day, he kept Mia home as promised. They watched movies and ate popsicles and played board games on the living room floor. She seemed better, more energetic, and by evening, her fever was gone completely. "Can I go back to school tomorrow?" she asked. "If you're still feeling good in the morning, yeah." "Good. I don't want to miss art class." Lucas smiled. "What are you making in art class?" "A present, but it's a secret." "A secret for who?" She grinned. "I can't tell you, or it won't be a secret anymore." Wednesday morning, Mia's temperature was normal, and she was bouncing around the apartment like her usual self. Lucas dropped her at school, went to the office, and spent the entire day in final preparation mode. The presentation was tomorrow at 2. 12 investors, the full executive team, and enough writing on the outcome to make Lucas's hands shake every time he thought about it. That evening, he practiced his opening in front of the bathroom mirror until the words felt smooth. He laid out his clothes. The one good suit he owned, a shirt Adrienne had convinced him to buy that actually fit properly, shoes he'd polished that morning. He set 3 alarms on his phone. He did not sleep. At 6 a.m., he gave up trying and went for a run. The city was just waking up, streetlights still glowing against the gray dawn sky. He ran until his lungs burned and his legs ached, then came home and took a shower so hot it left his skin pink. Mia was awake when he came out of the bathroom, sitting at the kitchen table with a bowl of cereal. "Big day?" she asked. "Big day. How'd you know?" "You have your serious face on." He sat down across from her. "Do I?" "Yeah, the one you get when something's important." "Well, you're right. It is important, but it's going to be okay." "I know," she said simply. "You're really good at your job." Lucas felt his throat tighten. "Thanks, baby." "Can Adrienne come for dinner again soon?" "Yeah, I think she'd like that." "Good. I want to show her the picture I made in art class." "I thought that was a secret." "It was. But now it's done so I can show people." At work, the morning dragged. Lucas tried to focus on emails and small tasks, but his mind kept jumping ahead to the presentation. At noon, he gave up and went to the conference room to set up. The space had been transformed. The long table was gone, replaced by rows of chairs facing a projection screen. Someone had brought in coffee and pastries. The whole thing looked professional and intimidating in equal measure. Lucas connected his laptop to the projector and ran through his slides one more time. Everything worked. Everything looked good. He just had to not fall apart when 20 people were staring at him. At 1:30, people started filing in. Investors in expensive suits, the executive team looking polished and confident, a few board members Lucas recognized from meetings. He found a seat in the back row and tried to slow his racing heart. Adrienne was the last to arrive. She caught his eye and gave him a small nod, reassurance without drawing attention. He nodded back. The presentation started at 2 sharp. Richard Garrett went first, walking through the company's financial performance and growth trajectory. Then the head of product talked about the roadmap and competitive positioning. Then the CTO discussed the technology stack and scalability. And then it was Lucas's turn. He stood up on legs that felt like water and walked to the front of the room. 20 faces turned toward him, expectant and evaluating. He connected his laptop, pulled up his slides, and opened his mouth to speak. Nothing came out. His mind went completely blank. Every word he'd practiced, every carefully crafted sentence just vanished. He stood there frozen, staring at the investors, feeling sweat prickle down his spine. From the front row, Adrienne caught his eye. She didn't smile or nod or do anything obvious. She just looked at him with an expression that said, "Breathe." He took a breath, then another, and then the words came. "2 months ago," he started, his voice rough but steady, "I was working 80-hour weeks and barely seeing my daughter. I was running on fumes, telling myself I could handle it, that this was just what it took to succeed. And then one day my 4-year-old asked me if I was going to leave her too. Because I wasn't present even when I was home. Because I'd sacrificed everything for a job that was slowly killing me." The room was completely silent. That's the reality for a lot of our employees. They're talented, dedicated, hardworking people who are burning out because we've built a culture that equates hours logged with value delivered. And we're losing them. Not just to competitors, but to exhaustion and disillusionment and the realization that no job is worth destroying your life for. He clicked to the next slide, showing the retention data. When I took over the employee experience department 3 months ago, our senior level retention was 62%. Industry standard is 75. We were hemorrhaging institutional knowledge and replacing experienced people with new hires who needed months to ramp up. It was costing us time, money, and competitive advantage. Another slide. The pilot program results. We launched flexible scheduling for a test group of 50 employees. Core hours from 10 to 3, work from home 3 days a week, and a firm boundary that evenings and weekends are off limits unless there's a genuine emergency. The results were immediate. Retention in the test group jumped to 91%. Productivity increased by 18%. And satisfaction scores went from a 3.2 to a 4.7 out of 5. He could see the investors leaning forward now, engaged. We're expanding that program company-wide next quarter. We're also launching peer support networks, mental health resources, and subsidized childcare. Not because it's trendy or looks good in recruitment materials, but because it's the right thing to do. And because companies that take care of their people outperform companies that don't, every single time. He clicked to the final slide, a simple statement in large text. People aren't resources. They're the reason we succeed. I know this isn't a typical pitch, he said. You're here to talk about technology and market share and return on investment, but none of that matters if we can't keep the people who make it happen. We're asking you to invest in Veil Technologies. I'm asking you to invest in a company that's committed to doing this differently, to building something that lasts because we're not burning people out to get there. He stopped. The room was quiet for a beat that felt like an eternity. Then one of the investors started clapping, then another. And suddenly the whole room was applauding, and Lucas felt his knees almost buckle with relief. He made it back to his seat in a daze. Adrienne leaned over and whispered, "That was perfect." I completely blanked at the start. I know, you recovered beautifully. The rest of the presentation continued, but Lucas barely heard it. His heart was still pounding, adrenaline making his hands shake. When the investors finally left to deliberate, the executive team gathered in Adrienne's office. "Well," Richard said, looking at Lucas with something that might have been respect, "that was unexpected." "Good unexpected or bad unexpected?" Lucas asked. "Good. Very good. You made it personal in a way that actually worked." He paused. "I still think you're too soft on people, but I can't argue with those retention numbers." "High praise coming from you," Adrienne said dryly. "Don't let it go to your head, Reed." The meeting broke up, and Lucas headed back to his office. He had maybe 20 minutes before he needed to pick up Mia from school, just enough time to send a few emails and pack up his laptop. Except when he sat down at his desk, the exhaustion hit him all at once. The sleepless nights, the stress, the adrenaline crash, all of it landed on him like a physical weight. He put his head down on his desk and closed his eyes for just a second. He woke up to someone shaking his shoulder. Lucas, wake up." He jerked upright, disoriented. Adrienne was standing beside his desk, her expression concerned. "What time is it?" 4:30? "What?" He grabbed his phone. 17 missed calls. 12 from the school, 5 from Mrs. Chandler. Oh no. He was out of his chair and running for the elevator before Adrienne could say another word. He called the school from the parking lot, his hands shaking so badly he could barely hold the phone. "Hillside Elementary. This is Lucas Reed. I was supposed to pick up my daughter at 3:15. I'm so sorry. Mr. Reed, Mia's fine. She's in the office with Mrs. Chandler. But we do need you to get here as soon as possible." "I'm on my way, 10 minutes. He made it in 8, tearing into the parking lot and running into the building. Mia was sitting in the principal's office with Mrs. Chandler, her backpack in her lap, her face streaked with dried tears. "Daddy!" She ran to him, and he scooped her up, holding her so tight she squeaked. "I'm so sorry, baby. I'm so sorry. I fell asleep and I didn't hear my phone, and it's okay," she said, but her voice was small and scared. "I thought you forgot about me." "Never. I would never forget about you. I just made a mistake, a really big mistake, and I'm so sorry." Mrs. Chandler stood up. "I got the call from the school and came to get her. She's been fine, just worried. Thank you. I can't tell you how much thank you." "It's no trouble." But Lucas, this is the second time this month you've been late. He felt shame burn through him. I know. It won't happen again. See that it doesn't. These kids need consistency. He thanked her again, signed Mia out, and carried her to the car. She was quiet on the drive home, staring out the window, and Lucas felt like the worst father in the world. At home, he made her favorite dinner, mac and cheese with cut-up hot dogs, and sat with her while she ate. Mia, I need you to know something. She looked up at him. I messed up today, really badly, and I'm sorry. You should never have to wonder if I'm coming for you. You should never have to wait and be scared like that. Are you going to forget me again? No, never. I promise. He took her hands. But I need to be honest with you about something. Daddy's job is really hard right now. And sometimes I get so tired that I make mistakes. That's not an excuse, it's just the truth. Do you like your job? The question caught him off guard. Sometimes, when I'm helping people, yeah, but sometimes it's too much. Then why do you do it? Because we need the money, and because I thought I could handle it. But maybe I can't, not like this. Mia set down her fork. I don't care about money. I just want you to not be sad and tired all the time. Lucas felt something crack in his chest. Because she was right. He'd been telling himself this was all for her. The job, the long hours, the constant hustle. But the truth was, he was doing it for himself. To prove he could. To show everyone he wasn't broken. And in the process, he was breaking the one thing that actually mattered. That night, after Mia was in bed, he sat on the couch with his laptop and stared at his inbox. There were emails from investors praising the presentation, messages from colleagues congratulating him, a note from Richard Garrett saying the board wanted to expand his department. He should have felt triumphant. This was everything he'd been working toward. Instead, he felt hollow. His phone rang. Adrienne. Hey, he answered. Hey, how's Mia? Scared, confused, wondering if her dad is going to abandon her like everyone else. Lucas. I fell asleep, Adrienne, at my desk in the middle of the afternoon. I was so exhausted from staying up practicing for a presentation that I forgot to pick up my daughter from school. It was a mistake. It happens. No, it doesn't just happen. It happens because I'm not handling this. I'm barely keeping my head above water, and I keep telling myself it's fine. It's worth it, but it's not. None of this is worth making my daughter feel like she doesn't matter. Adrienne was quiet for a moment. What are you saying? I don't know. I just know something has to change. Okay, then we'll change it. We'll adjust your workload, bring in more support, whatever you need. You can't fix this for me. Why not? Because it's not the workload. It's me. I'm the one who said yes to all of this, even though I knew it was too much. I'm the one who keeps pushing until I break. And I can't keep doing it. So what do you want to do? Lucas closed his eyes. I don't know. They talked for another hour, going in circles, not reaching any conclusions. When they finally hung up, Lucas felt more lost than ever. The next morning, he woke up exhausted and defeated. He got Mia ready for school, dropped her off with an extra long hug, and drove to the office on autopilot. The day passed in a blur. Meetings he couldn't focus on, emails he couldn't answer, a constant low-grade anxiety thrumming under everything. By 3 o'clock, he was staring at his computer screen without seeing it, his mind completely blank. At 4, Adrienne appeared in his doorway. Come with me, she said. Where? Just come. He followed her to the elevator, then up to the executive floor. But instead of going to her office, she led him to a small conference room he'd never been in before. It had windows overlooking the city and a couch instead of a table. Sit, she said. He sat. She sat beside him, not touching but close enough that he could feel the warmth of her presence. I've been thinking about what you said last night, she began. About not being able to handle this. And you're right, you can't, not like this. Not working full-time while being a single parent and trying to build a whole new department from scratch. Adrienne, let me finish. I've been asking too much of you. We both have. And I take responsibility for that. I saw what you could do and I wanted it for the company, but I didn't stop to think about what it was costing you. It's not your fault. It's not all my fault. But I'm complicit. She turned to face him. So here's what I'm proposing. We restructure your role again. You become an advisor instead of a director. You work 20 hours a week, consulting basis, same hourly rate, which means a pay cut overall, but more flexibility. You keep your benefits, and we hire someone else to actually run the department day to day. Lucas felt his stomach drop. You're demoting me. I'm giving you an out, a way to keep doing work you're good at without destroying yourself in the process. I don't want an out. I want to be able to do this. I know, but wanting something doesn't make it possible. He stood up, pacing to the window. So that's it? I give a good presentation and then immediately prove I can't handle the job. That's not what this is. Isn't it? I fall asleep at my desk, forget to pick up my kid, and suddenly I'm being shoved into a part-time advisory role because I'm too weak to do the actual work. Lucas, that's not... I'm tired of being weak. The words exploded out of him, louder than he intended. I'm tired of barely keeping up, of constantly feeling like I'm failing, of having everyone treat me like I'm one bad day away from falling apart. Maybe I am. Maybe I'm exactly as broken as everyone thinks. But I don't want to be. Adrian stood up, crossing to where he stood. You're not broken. You're human. There's a difference. Is there? Because from where I'm standing, it feels like the same thing. She reached for his hand, but he pulled away. Don't, he said. Don't try to fix this. You can't. I'm not trying to fix you. I'm trying to help you. By taking away my job? By giving you space to breathe, to be the father Mia needs, to actually have a life instead of just surviving. Lucas felt tears burning behind his eyes, and he furiously blinked them back. I wanted to prove I could do this, that I wasn't just some struggling single dad who needed charity. I wanted to earn this. You have earned it. You've earned it 10 times over. But earning something doesn't mean you have to kill yourself to keep it. He turned to look at her, and what he saw in her face broke something inside him. Not pity, not disappointment, just honest concern and something that looked a lot like love. I don't know what to do, he said quietly. Then let me help you figure it out. They stood there in the conference room as the sun set over the city, and Lucas felt the fight drain out of him. He was so tired of pushing, of proving, of pretending he had it all together when everything was held together with tape and prayers. What if I step back and regret it? He asked. What if you don't, and Mia pays the price? That was the question that mattered. Everything else was just noise. I need to think about it, he said finally. Take all the time you need. But as he left the office that evening and drove to pick up Mia, on time, alert, present, he already knew what his answer would be, because Mia had been right. She didn't care about money or titles or whether her dad had an impressive job. She just wanted him to not be sad and tired all the time. And maybe that was worth more than anything else he could build. That weekend, Lucas didn't think about the decision. He turned off his work phone, ignored his laptop, and spent 2 full days doing nothing but being present with Mia. They went to the Children's Museum on Saturday, where Mia spent 3 hours in the water play area getting completely soaked and loving every second of it. On Sunday, they stayed in their pajamas until noon, built a blanket fort in the living room, and ate cereal for dinner because neither of them felt like cooking. It was the most relaxed Lucas had felt in months. Monday morning arrived too quickly. He dropped Mia at school, drove to the office, and sat in the parking lot for 10 minutes staring at the building. Then he got out of the car, rode the elevator up to the executive floor, and knocked on Adrian's office door. Come in. She was on a call, but she gestured for him to sit. He waited while she wrapped up the conversation, trying to organize his thoughts into something coherent. When she hung up, she looked at him expectantly. You've made a decision. It wasn't a question. Yeah. He took a breath. I can't do this anymore. The full-time thing. I thought I could, but I was wrong. Adrian's expression didn't change, but something in her eyes softened. Okay. That's it? Just okay? What else do you want me to say? I already told you I'd support whatever you decided. I know, but I thought... He stopped, shook his head. I don't know what I thought. Maybe that you'd tried to talk me out of it. Would that change your mind? No. Then why would I waste both our time? She leaned back in her chair. Lucas, I meant what I said. I want you here, but not at the cost of everything else. So if part-time consulting is what you need, that's what we'll do. He felt relief wash over him, followed immediately by guilt. I'm sorry. I know this puts you in a tough position, having to find someone else to run the department. I'll manage. I always do. She paused. When do you want this to take effect? 2 weeks? I can help transition whoever you hire, document everything, make sure it's a smooth handoff. That works. I'll have HR draw up the new contract. Lucas stood to leave but stopped at the door. Adrienne? Yeah? Thank you for not making me feel like a failure for this. She looked at him for a long moment. You're not a failure, Lucas. You're someone who knows his limits and respects them. Most people never figure that out. He nodded and left before the emotion building in his chest could spill over into something embarrassing. The next 2 weeks were strange. Lucas worked on documentation, trained his replacement, a woman named Sarah Chen who'd been running employee programs at a tech company in Seattle, and slowly disentangled himself from the day-to-day operations of the department he'd built from nothing. It should have felt like losing something. Instead, it felt like setting down a weight he'd been carrying for so long he'd forgotten what it felt like to stand up straight. He also started making changes at home. He enrolled Mia in an after-school art program she'd been asking about for months. He said yes when Mrs. Chandler invited them to her granddaughter's birthday party. He cooked actual meals instead of ordering takeout 5 nights a week. Small things, but they added up to a life that felt less like survival and more like actually living. Adrienne noticed. You look different, she said one evening. They were having dinner at a small Italian place near Lucas's apartment, just the two of them. Mia was at a sleepover, her first one, and Lucas was trying not to check his phone every 5 minutes to make sure she was okay. Different how? Less tired, more present. She smiled. Like you're actually here instead of running on autopilot. I feel different. Better. He set his phone face down on the table, a small act of willpower. It's weird not being in the office every day, but also kind of great. What are you doing with all your extra time? Sleeping, mostly. Apparently I was running a pretty significant deficit. He laughed. Also spending actual time with Mia. We made cookies yesterday. She got flour everywhere, and we had to throw out the first batch because they burned, but she loved it. That sounds perfect. It was. He looked at her. What about you? How's the search for my replacement going? Sarah's great. She started last week, and she's already implementing ideas I never would have thought of. That's good. It is. Though I have to admit, it's strange not having you around as much. Strange good or strange bad? Adrienne considered the question. Both. Good because it means you're taking care of yourself. Bad because I miss you. The admission hung between them, honest and vulnerable. I miss you too, Lucas said quietly. But maybe that's not a bad thing. Maybe we needed some distance to figure out what this actually is. And what is it? He reached across the table and took her hand. I don't know yet, but I want to find out. Without the complication of working together constantly, without all the pressure and stress. Just us, figuring it out as we go. That sounds terrifying. Yeah, it does. He smiled. Want to do it anyway? She laughed, the sound genuine and unguarded. Yeah, I really do. They finished dinner and walked back to Lucas's apartment slowly, taking the long way, talking about nothing important. When they reached his building, Adrienne hesitated. Can I come up? She asked. Mia's not here. I know. Lucas felt his heart rate pick up. Yeah, come up. Inside his apartment, with the door closed and the city noise muffled behind walls, everything felt different, more intimate, more real. Want something to drink? He asked. Not really. Then what? She kissed him before he could finish the question, not gentle or tentative, but with an intensity that made his breath catch. Lucas kissed her back, his hands finding her waist, pulling her closer. They stumbled toward the couch, Adrienne's fingers tangling in his hair, and for a moment the world narrowed to just this, her mouth on his, the warmth of her body against him, the racing of his pulse. Then his phone rang. They broke apart, both breathing hard. Lucas grabbed his phone off the counter. Mia's friend's mom. I should take this, he said. Of course. He answered. Hello? Hi, Mr. Reed, it's Jennifer. Mia's fine, but she's asking for you. She's having a hard time settling down for bed. Can I talk to her? A moment later, Mia's voice came through. Daddy? Hey, baby, what's wrong? I want to come home. His heart sank. You're not having fun? I was, but now everyone's asleep except me, and I miss you. Do you want Mrs. Jennifer to bring you home? Yes, please. He looked at Adrienne, who nodded understanding. Okay, sweetheart, I'll come get you. Give me 20 minutes. He hung up and ran a hand through his hair. I'm sorry. I need to go get her. Don't apologize. She needs you. Adrienne stood, smoothing her shirt. I should go anyway. You don't have to. I know, but this, she gestured between them, should probably happen when we have more than 20 minutes and no interruptions. Lucas laughed despite his frustration. Yeah, probably. At the door, she kissed him again, softer this time. Rain check? Definitely. He picked up Mia 20 minutes later. She was waiting on the porch with her backpack, looking small and tired. She climbed into the car without a word, and Lucas didn't push her to talk. At home, he tucked her into bed and sat beside her. I'm sorry I couldn't do the sleepover, she said quietly. Don't be sorry. You tried something new and it wasn't quite right. That's okay. Are you mad? Not even a little bit. I'm proud of you for trying. She was quiet for a moment. Daddy, do you like Adrienne? The question caught him off guard. Yeah, I do. Is that okay with you? I like her too. She's nice. She is. Is she your girlfriend? Lucas considered how to answer. Maybe. We're still figuring it out. Okay. Mia rolled over, getting comfortable. I hope she is. You smile more when she's around. He kissed her forehead. Get some sleep, baby. The next few weeks settled into a new rhythm. Lucas worked his consulting hours, 20 a week, mostly from home, and spent the rest of his time being present for Mia. He picked her up from school every day, helped with homework, made dinner, read bedtime stories. The constant exhaustion he'd been carrying for months finally started to lift. He also saw Adrienne more, but differently now. Not in offices or conference rooms, but in the real world. They went to movies, took walks through the park, had dinner at restaurants where they didn't talk about work at all. They learned each other outside the context of Veil Technologies, and what Lucas discovered surprised him. Adrienne was funny in a dry, understated way that caught him off guard. She had strong opinions about coffee. The diner stuff was terrible, artisanal, single origin was pretentious, the sweet spot was a good local roaster, and could spend 20 minutes explaining why. She loved terrible reality TV shows and would text him commentary while watching, making him laugh until his sides hurt. She was also scared. Not of the business or investors or any of the high-stakes decisions she made daily, but of this, of being vulnerable, of letting someone matter, of building something that could fall apart. I keep waiting for you to realize this is a mistake, she said one night. They were on his couch, Mia asleep down the hall, a forgotten movie playing on the TV. Why would I think that? Because I'm not easy. I work too much, I'm terrible at talking about feelings, and I have no idea how to do this relationship thing. Neither do I. My last girlfriend left in the middle of the night without saying goodbye. That's fair. She leaned her head on his shoulder. But what if I mess this up? What if I hurt you or Mia? What if you don't? Is it that simple? No, but it's that important. She turned to look at him, and in her eyes he saw the same fear he felt, the terror of wanting something so much that losing it would break you. But underneath that, he also saw hope. I'm really glad you didn't give up on me, she said quietly. I'm really glad you didn't let me. They kissed, and this time there were no interruptions. Just the two of them, figuring out what it meant to be together, not because they had to be, but because they chose it. Over the next month, Adrienne became a fixture in their lives. She came to Mia's school art show and admired every single painting with genuine enthusiasm. She helped Lucas assemble a bookshelf he'd bought and spent 2 hours with the instruction manual before admitting they'd put it together backwards. She showed up on Sunday mornings with bagels and stayed for the whole day, just existing in their space like she belonged there. And slowly, carefully, she started to belong there. Mia adored her. She'd grab Adrienne's hand when they walked, chatter endlessly about school and friends, and the new dinosaur book she was reading. She started asking when Adrienne was coming over, saving drawings to show her, requesting that she be the one to read bedtime stories when she was there. Lucas watched it happen with a mixture of joy and terror, because Mia was getting attached. And if this didn't work out, if Adrienne decided it was too much, or Lucas screwed it up somehow, it wouldn't just be him who got hurt. He tried to bring it up one evening after Mia was in bed. "Can we talk about something?" Adrian looked up from her book. "Sure. What's on your mind?" "Mia, how attached she's getting. Is that a problem?" "It could be, if this doesn't work out." Adrian set down her book. "Do you think it won't work out?" "I don't know. I hope not. But I've been wrong before." "So have I." She moved closer to him on the couch. "But I'm not planning on going anywhere. And I need you to believe that." "I'm trying." "Try harder." Her voice was firm but not unkind. "I know you've been abandoned, Lucas, by your dad, by Vanessa. I know you're waiting for me to do the same thing, but I'm not them, and at some point you have to decide whether you're going to trust me or keep waiting for the other shoe to drop." He looked at her, at the determination in her eyes, and felt something shift. "You're right. I usually am." He laughed despite himself. "How are you so confident about this when you said you're terrible at relationships?" "Because for the first time in my life, I'm not hedging my bets. I'm all in, and that's terrifying, but it also makes everything really simple." "Simple how?" "Either we work or we don't. Either we choose each other every day or we don't. There's no halfway. No backup plan. Just this." Lucas pulled her close, feeling the steady beat of her heart against his chest. "Just this sounds pretty good to me." "Yeah? Yeah." They sat there in the quiet of his apartment, the TV flickering with some show neither of them was watching, and Lucas felt peace settle over him. Not the fragile, temporary kind that could shatter at any moment, but something deeper, more solid. He was building a life. Not the one he'd planned or expected, but one that felt real in a way nothing had felt real in a long time. The peace lasted 3 weeks. Then Vanessa called. Lucas was making dinner when his phone rang with a number he didn't recognize. He almost didn't answer, but something made him pick up. "Hello? Lucas? It's me." The voice hit him like cold water. "Vanessa." After 6 months of silence, she was calling like no time had passed at all. "What do you want?" His voice came out harder than he intended. "I know I have no right to call, but I need to talk to you." "You had 6 months to talk. You chose not to." "I know, and I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." Mia appeared in the kitchen doorway. "Daddy, is dinner ready?" He covered the phone. 5 minutes, baby. Go wash your hands." She nodded and disappeared. Lucas turned back to the call. "Is that Mia?" Vanessa's voice cracked. "Can I talk to her?" "No." "Please, Lucas. I just want to hear her voice." "You lost that right when you walked out in the middle of the night." He kept his voice low, controlled. "Why are you calling?" "I want to explain, to apologize, to try to make things right." "There's nothing to make right. You left. We moved on." "Have you? Really?" The question hit closer than he wanted to admit. "That's none of your business anymore. Lucas, please, just meet me for coffee. Let me explain. You deserve that much." He wanted to say no, to hang up and block the number and pretend this conversation never happened. But part of him, the part that had spent months wondering why, what he'd done wrong, whether he could have fixed it, needed answers. "Fine. 1 coffee, then we're done." "Thank you. Tomorrow? That place on 5th at noon?" "Fine." He hung up and stood there staring at his phone, his heart pounding. "Who was that?" Adrian's voice came from behind him. She'd let herself in with the key he'd given her last week, carrying grocery bags. "Vanessa." Adrian set down the bags carefully. "What did she want?" "To talk. She wants to meet tomorrow." "Are you going to?" I said yes. "I need to know why she left." "Do you? Or do you just think you do?" Lucas turned to look at her. "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means sometimes closure is a myth. Sometimes people leave and there's no good reason, no explanation that makes it hurt less. And going looking for one just reopens wounds. So I should just ignore her?" "I didn't say that. I'm saying be careful. Don't let her back in just because she's offering answers." "I'm not letting her back in." "Good." Adrian crossed to him, putting her hands on his shoulders. "Because you've built something here. Something good. Don't let her take that away from you." He pulled her close, breathing in the scent of her shampoo. "I won't." But even as he said it, he felt doubt creeping in. The next day, he showed up at the coffee shop 10 minutes early and immediately regretted it. He ordered black coffee he didn't drink and sat by the window watching the door. Vanessa arrived exactly at noon. She looked different. Thinner, her hair shorter, dark circles under her eyes. She saw him and smiled nervously, crossing to his table. "Hi." "Hi." She sat down, ordering nothing, just folding her hands on the table. For a moment, neither of them spoke. "You look good," she said finally. "You look tired." "I am tired. I've been—" She stopped, shook her head. "That doesn't matter. I owe you an explanation." "Yeah, you do." She took a breath. "I left because I was drowning. I woke up one day and realized I didn't know who I was anymore. I wasn't your girlfriend or Mia's almost stepmom. I was just this person playing a role I never auditioned for." "So you just left? In the middle of the night? Without a word?" "I know it was cowardly. I know I should have talked to you. But I couldn't face it. I couldn't face you looking at me like I was destroying everything, because I was." "You're right. You were." Lucas felt anger rising. "Do you have any idea what you did to Mia? She asked me if I was going to leave her too. A 4-year-old shouldn't have to worry about that." "I know. I'm so sorry." "Sorry doesn't fix it, Vanessa. Sorry doesn't undo the damage." She was crying now, quiet tears streaming down her face. "I don't expect you to forgive me. I just needed you to know I didn't leave because of you or because of Mia. I left because I was a mess and I didn't know how to fix it while pretending everything was fine." "You could have told me. I would have helped. I know. That's what made it worse. You were so good, Lucas, so patient and understanding and willing to carry all of us. And I couldn't be this person you needed me to be." Lucas sat back, feeling the fight drain out of him. "Why are you telling me this now?" "Because I'm in therapy, working through my issues. And my therapist said I needed to make amends to the people I hurt. So this is for you, not for me." "Maybe. Probably." She wiped her eyes. "But I also wanted you to know that leaving you was the biggest mistake of my life. And if I could go back and do it differently, I would." "But you can't." "No, I can't." They sat in silence for a moment. Outside, the city moved on. People walking, cars passing, life continuing regardless of the small dramas playing out in coffee shops. "Are you happy?" Vanessa asked. Lucas thought about it. About Mia's laughter. About the job that no longer consumed him. About Adrian and the way she fit into his life like she'd always been there. "Yeah," he said. "I am." "Good. You deserve that." "So do you." She smiled sadly. "Maybe someday." They talked for a few more minutes, tying up loose ends, confirming there was nothing left between them except history. When they finally stood to leave, Vanessa hesitated. "Can I ask one thing?" "What?" "Tell Mia I'm sorry, that I love her, and I'm sorry I wasn't strong enough to stay." Lucas nodded. "I'll tell her." Outside, they went in opposite directions. Lucas walked to his car feeling lighter than he had in months. Not because Vanessa had given him closure, Adrian had been right about that being a myth, but because he realized he didn't need it. He'd already moved on. His phone buzzed. "Adrian, how'd it go?" "About how you'd expect." She apologized. I listened. We said goodbye. "Are you okay?" "Yeah, I really am. Want to come over tonight? I'm making that pasta you like. I'll bring wine." He drove home feeling like something had been settled. Not perfectly, not neatly, but settled enough. That evening, with Adrian at the stove arguing with Mia about whether pasta needed garlic or not, it definitely did, Lucas stood in the doorway of his kitchen and watched them. This was his life now, chaotic and imperfect and nothing like he'd planned. But it was his, and it was real, and it was exactly what he needed. Adrian caught him watching and smiled. "You okay?" "Yeah, I'm good." And for the first time in a very long time, he actually meant it. 2 months after the meeting with Vanessa, Lucas woke up to Mia jumping on his bed at 6:30 in the morning. "Daddy, Daddy, wake up! It's my birthday!" He groaned and pulled the pillow over his head. "It's too early for birthdays." "No, it's not. I'm 5 now. That means I'm basically a grown-up." Lucas laughed and pulled her down into a hug. "You're definitely not a grown-up yet. But you are 5, which is pretty cool. Can we have pancakes? With chocolate chips?" Obviously. They went to the kitchen and made a mess. Flour ended up on the floor, chocolate chips got eaten directly from the bag, and the first batch burned because Lucas was too busy tickling Mia to watch the pan. But by 7:30, they had a stack of mostly edible pancakes, and Mia was covered in syrup and grinning ear to ear. "Best birthday breakfast ever," she declared. "Wait until you see what we're doing later." "What are we doing?" "It's a surprise." She bounced in her seat. "Tell me, tell me, tell me." "Nope, you'll find out at noon." The surprise was the aquarium. Adrienne had arranged another VIP pass, this time with a behind-the-scenes tour where Mia got to touch a starfish and learn how they fed the sharks. She was in absolute heaven, asking a million questions and taking mental notes on everything. Afterward, they went back to Lucas's apartment where Mrs. Chandler and a handful of Mia's friends from school were waiting. Adrienne had somehow transformed the living room into an underwater wonderland with blue streamers and fish decorations, and there was a cake shaped like an octopus that must have cost a fortune. "You did all this?" Lucas asked, pulling Adrienne aside while the kids played pin the fin on the shark. "I had help. Mrs. Chandler is surprisingly good at party planning." "This is too much." "It's not. She's 5 once. Let her have it." "Ma." Lucas looked at Mia, who was laughing with her friends. Her face lit up with pure joy, and felt his chest tighten. "Thank you. Really. Thank me by having cake with me later. The kids get the octopus. Adults get the good stuff I hid in your fridge." The party was chaos in the best way. Kids ran around screaming, cake got smashed into carpets, and someone, Lucas never figured out who, managed to get frosting on the ceiling. But Mia had the time of her life, and when the last parent picked up the last kid and the apartment finally went quiet, she crashed on the couch with her new stuffed dolphin and fell asleep mid-sentence. Lucas carried her to bed, then came back to find Adrienne cleaning up paper plates and streamers. "Leave it," he said. "I'll do it tomorrow." "It'll take 10 minutes now." "Adrienne." She stopped and looked at him. "Come here." She crossed to where he stood, and he pulled her into his arms. "Thank you for today. For all of this. You didn't have to do any of it." "I wanted to. She's important to me." "I know, and that means everything." They stood there in the middle of his disaster of a living room, holding each other, and Lucas felt something click into place. This was his family now. Not the one he'd expected or planned for, but the one he'd built from the wreckage of what came before. "I love you," he said, the words coming out before he'd fully decided to say them. Adrienne pulled back to look at him. "What?" "I love you. I know we haven't said it yet, and maybe it's too soon, but I do. I love you." She smiled, and it was the most genuine, unguarded expression he'd ever seen on her face. "It's not too soon, and I love you too. I have for a while." "Yeah?" "Yeah." She kissed him softly. "Now come on, let's clean this up and have that cake I promised you." They spent the next hour restoring order to the apartment, talking about nothing important, stealing kisses between trips to the trash can. By the time they finally sat down with slices of the fancy adult cake, some kind of chocolate situation with raspberry filling, it was past 11 and Lucas was exhausted in the best possible way. "Can I ask you something?" Adrienne said, setting down her fork. "Sure." "Where do you see this going? Us, I mean." Lucas thought about it. "Honestly, I don't know. I've never been good at planning the future, but I know I want you in mine." "That's not very specific." "Do you need it to be?" She considered. "No, I guess not. I just wanted to make sure we're on the same page." "What page are you on?" "The one where this is real, where we're building something that lasts, where I'm not just your girlfriend, but part of your actual life." "You are part of my actual life. You have been for months." "I know, but I needed to hear you say it." Lucas reached across the table and took her hand. "You're part of my life, Adrienne. You and Mia both. And I'm not going anywhere." "Promise?" "Promise." They finished their cake, and Adrienne left around midnight, kissing him goodbye at the door, with a promise to call tomorrow. Lucas cleaned up the rest of the apartment, checked on Mia one more time, and fell into bed feeling more content than he had in years. The next morning, he woke up to his phone ringing. Unknown number again. He almost didn't answer, but curiosity won. "Hello? Mr. Reed, this is James Morrison. I'm on the board at Vale Technologies." Lucas sat up, suddenly awake. "Hi, what can I do for you?" I wanted to talk to you about something. Do you have time for coffee this week? Sure. What's this about? I'd rather discuss it in person. Thursday at 10? That place on 5th? I'll be there. He hung up feeling uneasy. Board members didn't call unless something was wrong or they wanted something. He texted Adrienne, "Did you know James Morrison wants to meet with me?" Her response came 5 minutes later. "No." "What about?" "Wouldn't say." "Meeting Thursday. Let me know what he wants. Could be nothing." But Lucas's gut told him it wasn't nothing. Thursday arrived, and Lucas showed up at the coffee shop 15 minutes early. Morrison was already there, a silver-haired man in his 60s wearing a suit that probably cost more than Lucas's car. "Lucas, thanks for meeting me." Morrison shook his hand with a grip that was just slightly too firm. "Of course. What's this about?" Morrison waited until they both had coffee before speaking. "I'll get right to it. The board is concerned about Adrienne." Lucas felt his defenses go up immediately. "Concerned how?" "Her focus, her decision-making, specifically around you." "I don't follow." "Lucas, you're a smart guy. You know how this looks. The CEO restructures a role specifically for an employee she's romantically involved with. That's a conflict of interest at best, favoritism at worst. She restructured my role because I asked her to, because I was burning out and needed to prioritize my daughter." That may be true, but perception matters. And the perception is that you're getting special treatment. Lucas set down his coffee carefully. "What are you asking me to do?" "I'm asking you to consider stepping back entirely, ending your consulting contract, making a clean break." "And if I don't?" Morrison's expression hardened. "Then we'll have to consider whether Adrienne's judgment is compromised, whether she's fit to lead this company." The threat was clear. Lucas felt anger rise in his chest, hot and sharp. "You're asking me to choose between my job and her career. I'm asking you to do what's best for the company. By sacrificing my relationship and her reputation, that's not what's best. That's covering your own ass." "Mr. Reed." "No." Lucas stood up. "You don't get to do this. You don't get to use me as leverage against her. If you have concerns about Adrienne's leadership, take them up with her directly. Leave me out of it." "We're trying to avoid that conversation." "Well, you failed, because I'm going straight to her office and telling her about this." Morrison stood as well. "If you do that, you'll force our hand. Then force it. I'm not backing down, and neither is she." Lucas left the coffee shop, got in his car, and drove straight to Vail Technologies. He rode the elevator up to the executive floor and walked into Adrienne's office without knocking. She looked up from her computer, surprised. "Lucas? What?" "Morrison just ambushed me, told me to end my consulting contract or the board would question your judgment." Adrienne's expression went cold. He said, "What?" Lucas told her everything. When he finished, she was standing, her hands clenched into fists. "That manipulative bastard. He's been looking for an excuse to push me out for months." "Why?" "Because I won't play his games. He wants the company to go public so he can cash out his shares. I want to stay private and build something sustainable. We've been fighting about it since the last funding round. And now he's using me to undermine you." "Not for long." She grabbed her phone. "I'm calling an emergency board meeting." "Adrienne, wait. No, I'm done playing nice with people who think they can manipulate me." She looked at him. "Are you okay with this getting messy?" "If it means not letting them win, yeah." "Good, because it's about to get very messy." The board meeting happened that afternoon. Lucas wasn't allowed in, conflict of interest apparently, so he waited in Adrienne's office while she went to war. 2 hours later, she came back looking exhausted but triumphant. "What happened?" "I gave them a choice. Either they accept that my personal life is none of their business, or I walk and take my equity with me." "You didn't." "I did, and I reminded them that I still hold controlling shares. They can question my judgment all they want, but they can't force me out." "What did Morrison say?" "Not much. He knows when he's beaten." She sat down heavily. "But this isn't over. He'll keep pushing, keep looking for ammunition. We need to be careful." "What does careful look like?" "Honest, transparent. No more hiding our relationship or pretending it doesn't exist. If we're going to do this, we do it openly and deal with whatever comes." Lucas crossed to her, kneeling down so they were eye level. "Are you sure? This could cost you." It won't cost me anything I'm not willing to lose. She cupped his face. You're worth fighting for, Lucas. Both of you are. So are you. They sat there in her office as the sun set over the city, and Lucas felt the weight of what they'd just committed to. This wasn't a casual relationship anymore. This was all in. Consequences be damned. Over the next few weeks, things shifted at Vale Technologies. Adrienne made their relationship public, announcing it in a company-wide meeting with the kind of straightforward confidence that made everyone sit up and pay attention. There was gossip, of course, and a few raised eyebrows, but mostly people seemed to respect the honesty. Morrison backed off, at least publicly. But Lucas could feel the tension simmering underneath, waiting for the next opportunity to strike. He tried not to let it bother him. He had more important things to focus on, like Mia, who was thriving in kindergarten and had recently decided she wanted to be a marine biologist when she grew up. Like his consulting work, which had evolved into something he actually enjoyed instead of endured. Like building a life with Adrienne that felt sustainable instead of destructive. But the peace didn't last. 6 weeks after the board meeting, Adrienne came home late looking shaken. She'd started keeping a toothbrush at Lucas's apartment, then a drawer, then half the closet. Now she just showed up most evenings after work and stayed. What happened? Lucas asked, seeing her expression. Morrison's making his move. He convinced 2 other board members to support going public. They're calling for a vote next month. Can they do that? Technically, yes. I still have controlling shares so I can block it. But it's going to cause a war. What do you want to do? She sat down on the couch, dropping her head into her hands. I don't know. Part of me wants to fight him, to dig in and refuse, but another part of me is just so tired of fighting. Lucas sat beside her, pulling her close. Then don't fight. What? Don't fight. Walk away. Build something new. Lucas, I can't just walk away from my company. Why not? You've been running it for 7 years. You've made it successful, proven everything you needed to prove. Maybe it's time for something different. Like what? I don't know, but I know you're miserable dealing with Morrison and board politics and investor demands. What if you could build something on your own terms? Something smaller, more focused on what you actually care about? Adrienne was quiet for a long time. That's terrifying. Yeah, but so was walking away from my director role, and it was the best decision I ever made. This is different. This is my whole identity. No, it's not. It's a job. A company. It's not who you are. She looked at him, and he saw the fear in her eyes. What if I don't know who I am without it? Then we figure it out together. She leaned into him, and he held her while she processed. Outside, the city hummed with evening traffic, people heading home to their own lives and problems. I need to think about it, she said finally. Take all the time you need. But Lucas could tell she'd already made the decision. She was just working up the courage to act on it. The vote happened 3 weeks later. Adrienne walked into the boardroom, delivered a prepared statement about her vision for the company's future, and then announced she was stepping down as CEO effective immediately. The room erupted. Morrison tried to argue, to convince her to stay, but she was done. She'd already lined up her successor, Sarah Chen, who'd been running Lucas's old department, and transferred her voting shares to a trust that would keep the company private for at least 5 years. You're really doing this? Morrison said, looking genuinely shocked. I really am, and you know what? I should have done it years ago. She walked out of that boardroom and never looked back. The next few months were strange. Adrienne struggled with the transition more than she'd expected. She'd spent 7 years building Vale Technologies, and letting go was harder than just making the decision. But slowly, she started to figure out who she was beyond the CEO title. She started consulting for other companies, helping them build sustainable cultures. She taught a class at the local university about entrepreneurship and work-life balance. She spent mornings drinking coffee in Lucas's kitchen and afternoons picking up Mia from school. And she was happy. Not perfectly, not without moments of doubt or regret, but genuinely happy in a way Lucas had never seen before. One Saturday morning, 6 months after she'd left Vale Technologies, Lucas woke up to find her already awake, sitting by the window with a notebook. What are you working on? He asked. An idea for a new company. Tell me about it. She explained her vision, a consulting firm focused on helping tech companies build human-centered cultures, not just wellness programs or flexible schedules, but fundamental restructuring of how work gets done. I want to help other companies avoid the mistakes I made, she said, to show them you can build something successful without destroying people in the process. That sounds amazing. You think so? I know so, and I think you should do it. Want to help? Lucas laughed. Are you offering me a job? I'm offering you a partnership. Equal stakes, equal say, building something together from the ground up. He looked at her, at the excitement in her eyes, and felt something shift. This was it. The thing they'd been building toward without realizing it. Yeah, he said. Let's do it. They launched the company 4 months later. It was small at first, just the two of them working from Lucas's apartment, taking clients when they could find them. But word spread quickly. Companies wanted what they were offering, and they were good at delivering it. Within a year, they had a small office and 3 employees. Within 2, they were turning down clients because they couldn't keep up with demand. But unlike Veil Technologies, unlike Lucas's director role, this felt sustainable. They built the company around their lives instead of the other way around. Lucas still picked up Mia from school most days. Adrienne still taught her university class. They had date nights and family dinners and weekends where they didn't think about work at all. And Mia thrived. At 7 years old, she was confident and happy, with a group of close friends and a growing collection of marine biology books. She still asked about Vanessa sometimes, but less frequently. The wound had healed into a scar, present but no longer painful. One evening, almost 2 years after Adrienne had left Veil Technologies, Lucas came home to find both of them in the kitchen. Adrienne was teaching Mia how to make pasta from scratch, and there was flour everywhere. This is a disaster, he said, laughing. This is cooking, Adrienne corrected. Disasters are part of the process. Mia held up a misshapen piece of dough. Look, Daddy, I made a noodle. That's the best noodle I've ever seen. They ate dinner on the floor of the living room because the table was covered with Mia's school project, a diorama of the ocean with hand-painted fish. Afterward, Mia fell asleep watching a documentary about whales, curled up between Lucas and Adrienne on the couch. Should we move her to bed? Adrienne whispered. In a minute. I'm too comfortable. They sat there in the quiet, the documentary playing softly, Mia's small body warm against Lucas's side. Can I ask you something? Adrienne said. Always. Do you ever regret it? Leaving the director role, restructuring your whole life, all of it? Lucas thought about it. About the chaos and stress and constant feeling of drowning that had defined those months. About the peace he'd found when he finally let go. About this moment right here, sitting on his floor with the 2 people who mattered most. Not even a little bit, he said. Do you? Regret leaving Veil? No. Leaving that company was the best thing I ever did. It gave me space to figure out what I actually wanted instead of just chasing what I thought I should want. And what do you want? She looked at him, then down at Mia. This? Exactly this. A month later, on a Saturday morning, Lucas woke up to find Adrienne already awake beside him. Can't sleep? He asked. Just thinking. About? About how we should probably make this official. Make what official? She turned to face him. Us. This family we've built. I want to marry you, Lucas. He blinked, fully awake now. Are you proposing? I'm asking a question that doesn't have a right answer except whatever's true for you. Lucas looked at her, at the woman who'd seen him at his worst and hadn't looked away, who'd fought for him when he couldn't fight for himself, who'd built a life with him that felt like coming home every single day. Yes, he said. Yes, I want to marry you. She smiled, that rare, unguarded smile he loved so much. Good, because I already bought a ring. You did? She reached into her nightstand and pulled out a small box. I've been carrying it around for weeks waiting for the right moment. And this was the right moment? Me half asleep with bedhead? This was perfect. He opened the box to find a simple silver band, exactly his style. He put it on and it fit perfectly. How did you know my size? I have my ways, they told Mia that afternoon. She was playing in the backyard, her marine biology book spread around her, when they called her over. Mia, Adrienne and I want to tell you something. She looked up, immediately alert. What? We're getting married. For a moment, she just stared at them. Then her face split into the biggest smile Lucas had ever seen. Really? You're going to be my mom? Adrienne knelt down so they were eye level. I'm going to be your stepmom, but only if that's okay with you. It's more than okay. It's perfect. Mia threw her arms around Adrian's neck. Can I call you Mom? Adrian's voice cracked. If you want to. I want to. Lucas watched them hold each other and felt tears prick his eyes. This was his family. Not perfect, not without scars, but real and honest and built on a foundation of choosing each other every single day. They got married 3 months later in a small ceremony at the Botanical Gardens. Just close friends, Mrs. Chandler, a few colleagues, and Mia as the flower girl in a dress she'd picked out herself. No elaborate production, no stress, just two people making promises they intended to keep. When the officiant pronounced them married, Mia cheered louder than anyone else. At the reception, Lucas found himself standing at the edge of the crowd, watching Adrian dance with Mia to some pop song about friendship. They were laughing, Mia's small hands in Adrian's, completely unselfconscious. Mrs. Chandler appeared beside him. You did good, Lucas. I got lucky. Luck is what happens when you make good choices and don't give up. She patted his arm. You chose to be present for your daughter. You chose to ask for help when you needed it. You chose to build something real instead of just surviving. That's not luck. That's courage. Lucas felt his throat tighten. Thank you for everything you've done for us. That's what neighbors are for. She smiled. Now go dance with your wife before she wears out that poor child. He crossed to them, tapping Adrian on the shoulder. Mind if I cut in? Only if you dance with both of us, Mia said. So they did, the three of them in a small circle, Mia giggling as Lucas spun her around, Adrian's hand warm in his. This was what he'd been fighting for all along, Lucas realized. Not success or recognition or proving he could handle everything. Just this. A moment of pure, uncomplicated joy with the people who loved him exactly as he was. 5 years later, Lucas woke up to chaos. It was Saturday morning, and Mia, now 12 years old and somehow both a preteen and still his little girl, was arguing with her younger brother about who got to use the bathroom first. I was here first, Charlie yelled. He was 4, stubborn as hell, and looked exactly like Adrian. You always say that, Mia shot back. Lucas groaned and pulled the pillow over his head. Adrian, already awake and reading beside him, laughed. Your turn, she said. They're your kids too. Charlie's my kid. Mia's yours. That means you're up. That's not how parenting works. It is on Saturday mornings. Lucas dragged himself out of bed and managed to negotiate a bathroom schedule that satisfied no one, but at least stopped the shouting. By the time he made it to the kitchen, Adrian had coffee waiting, and Mia was already at the table working on her marine biology homework. You know it's the weekend, right? He said. I know, but I want to finish this so I can go to the aquarium later. Again? We were just there last week. That was for fun. This is for my project. Lucas exchanged a look with Adrian, who just shrugged. Mia had never outgrown her obsession with ocean life, and they'd learned to just go with it. Charlie appeared in the doorway, his hair sticking up in every direction. I want pancakes. Please, Adrian corrected. I want pancakes, please. That's better. Go wash your hands. By the time breakfast was over and the kids were settled, Mia studying, Charlie building an elaborate fort out of couch cushions, Lucas found a moment to just breathe. Remember when it was just us and one kid? He said to Adrian. Vaguely. Was it quieter? Significantly. Do you miss it? Lucas looked around at his chaotic, noisy, imperfect household and smiled. Not even a little bit. The consulting firm they'd built had grown beyond anything they'd imagined. They had offices in 3 cities now, a team of 20 people, and a waiting list of companies wanting their help. But they'd managed to do it without losing themselves in the process. They still had family dinners most nights. They still took vacations where phones were forbidden. They still prioritized being present over being productive. And the work they did mattered. They'd helped dozens of companies restructure, had seen retention rates soar and burnout rates plummet. They'd proven that you could build something successful without destroying people in the process. That afternoon, while Mia was at the aquarium with Adrian and Charlie was napping, Lucas found himself looking through old photos on his phone. Pictures from those early days, Mia as a toddler, the apartment he'd lived in when Vanessa left, selfies from late nights at Vail Technologies when he'd been running on fumes and stubborn determination. He barely recognized that version of himself. The exhaustion in his eyes, the tightness around his mouth, the way he held his shoulders like he was bracing for impact. He didn't miss that person, but he was grateful for him, for having the strength to keep going when everything felt impossible, for making the hard choice to step back when stepping back felt like failure, for being brave enough to accept help and build something new from the wreckage. His phone buzzed. A text from Adrienne with a photo attached. Mia standing in front of the shark tank, her face pressed against the glass, completely entranced. She wants to be a marine biologist more than ever. We might need to move closer to the ocean. Lucas smiled and texted back. Let's talk about it when you get home. Because that was the thing about this life they'd built. Everything was negotiable. Everything was possible, as long as they kept choosing each other. When Adrienne and Mia came home an hour later, Mia was talking a mile a minute about sea turtles and coral reefs and ocean acidification. Lucas listened, asked questions, and felt profound gratitude for this person his daughter was becoming, confident, passionate, unafraid to pursue what she loved. That evening, after the kids were in bed, Lucas and Adrienne sat on their back porch with glasses of wine, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and pink. "Do you think we should actually consider it?" Adrienne asked, moving closer to the coast. "For Mia? For all of us. The business is mostly remote anyway. We could go anywhere." Lucas thought about it. Where would we go? I don't know. Somewhere with good schools and easy access to marine research facilities. Maybe San Diego? Seattle? That's a big change. So is everything else we've done? She leaned her head on his shoulder. I'm not saying we have to. I'm just saying maybe we could. Let's talk to Mia about it. See if it's actually what she wants or just a passing interest. Fair enough. They sat in comfortable silence, and Lucas felt the weight of contentment settle over him. Not happiness exactly. Happiness was too fleeting, too dependent on circumstances. This was something deeper, peace. The bone-deep certainty that he was exactly where he was supposed to be. Can I tell you something? He said. Always. I used to be so scared of failing, of not being enough, of losing everything and ending up alone. And now? Now I know that even if I fail, even if everything falls apart, I'll be okay. Because I have you and Mia and Charlie, and we'll figure it out together. Adrienne lifted her head to look at him. That's what I love about you. You learned how to be vulnerable without being weak, how to ask for help without feeling diminished. Most people never figure that out. I had a good teacher. Who? You. Mia. Every person who showed me that needing help isn't a character flaw, it's just being human. She kissed him, soft and unhurried, and Lucas felt himself relax into it, into her, into this moment, into the life they'd built together from nothing but determination and hope. Later that night, unable to sleep, Lucas found himself in Mia's room. She was sprawled across her bed, surrounded by books about marine life, her hair a tangle on the pillow. He sat on the edge of the bed and watched her sleep, this incredible person who'd been his reason for everything. I did it, baby, he whispered. I don't know if I did it perfectly, but I did the best I could, and I hope that's enough. She stirred in her sleep, reaching for the stuffed dolphin she'd had since her 5th birthday, the one Adrienne had given her at that first aquarium trip. Even at 12, she still slept with it every night. Lucas kissed her forehead and went back to his own room, where Adrienne was already asleep. He slid into bed beside her, and she automatically shifted closer, her body warm against his. This was it, he thought. This was what he'd been fighting for all along, even when he didn't know it. Not a perfect life or a flawless family or some idealized version of success. Just this. Messy, complicated, real, and more valuable than anything he could have built alone. He fell asleep thinking about the future, about Mia going to college someday, about Charlie growing up, about the company expanding, about maybe moving to the coast where Mia could pursue her dreams, about all the challenges and changes and unpredictable chaos that lay ahead. And for the first time in his life, he wasn't afraid of any of it, because he'd learned the most important lesson of all. You don't have to have all the answers. You don't have to be perfect or tireless or strong enough to carry everything alone. You just have to show up, be honest, ask for help when you need it, and keep choosing the people who matter. Everything else is just details. The next morning, Lucas woke up to Charlie jumping on the bed again. Apparently, this was going to be a regular thing. And Mia, already dressed and ready for the day, asking if they could please go back to the aquarium because she'd forgotten to take notes on the jellyfish exhibit. Adrienne was in the kitchen making coffee, her hair a mess, wearing one of his old t-shirts, looking absolutely perfect in her imperfection. "Good morning," she said, handing him a cup. "Good morning." He kissed her, tasting coffee and toothpaste. "Ready for another day?" "With you?" "Always." Charlie ran past them, chasing the dog they'd gotten last year, a golden retriever named Captain who had absolutely zero obedience training and an unlimited capacity for love. Mia was already gathering her research materials, completely in her element. Lucas looked around at his chaotic, noisy, beautiful life and smiled. He'd started this journey as a single father, barely keeping his head above water, terrified of failing, convinced he had to do everything alone. He'd almost destroyed himself trying to prove he was strong enough. But the real strength, he'd learned, wasn't in carrying everything yourself. It was in knowing when to set things down, in choosing what mattered, and letting go of what didn't. In building a life around people instead of achievements, around presence instead of productivity. He'd thought walking away from that director role meant admitting defeat. Instead, it had been the first step toward actually winning, not against anyone else, but against his own destructive patterns, his own fear, his own inability to accept help. And now, standing in his kitchen on a random Sunday morning with coffee in his hand and his family around him, Lucas understood something fundamental. The life he'd thought he lost when Vanessa left hadn't been a life at all. It had been a performance, an exhausting imitation of what he thought success should look like. This messy, imperfect, real thing he'd built, this was actually living. "Daddy," Mia called from the living room, "can we go now? Can we have breakfast first?" "We can get breakfast at the aquarium." Adrienne laughed. She has a point. Lucas looked at his wife, his partner in every sense of the word, and felt a surge of gratitude so intense it nearly knocked him over. "All right," he called back to Mia. "Give me 10 minutes to get dressed." "Thank you, thank you, thank you." He drained his coffee, kissed Adrienne one more time, and headed to the bedroom to change. Behind him, he could hear Charlie asking if penguins were at the aquarium, Mia explaining the difference between penguins and puffins, Adrienne referencing the debate about whether they should get pancakes or bagels first. This was his life now. Not the one he'd planned, not the one he'd expected, but the one he'd fought for and built and chosen every single day. And it was more than enough. It was everything.